Good evening, everyone. We are just coming back from the executive session. We have discussed 3 items in executive session. Is there a member of council who wishes to make a motion on one of the items discussed in executive session?
I would, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. FLEWELLING.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that County Council authorize the administrator to join the lawsuit regarding recouping unpaid A-tax and H-tax money from vacation rental properties.
As well as business licenses.
And business license fees as well.
Okay. Mr. FLEWELLING makes that motion. May I have a second, please?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard makes the second. Is there any discussion? This would be to move this to the county council for action. Okay, seeing no discussion, this will be moved to the council agenda without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, this will be placed on the county council meeting agenda. No further action being done at the caucus meeting. The caucus meeting is now adjourned. Is broadcast ready for the council meeting? Couple minutes, okay. We'll start the council meeting I'd like to welcome you to the County Council meeting of Monday, April 12th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. As I call the name of the council member, will you please acknowledge that you are present? Councilman Cunningham.
Present and in person.
Councilman Dawson.
Here.
Councilman FLEWELLING.
Here.
Councilman Glover.
Here.
Councilman Hervishon.
Present.
Councilwoman Howard.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Mark Lawson, present.
Councilman McElynn.
Here.
Councilman Rodman.
Present.
Councilman Somerville.
Present.
Chair is present. All 11 members are here to conduct the business of council. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for the invocation, which will be conducted by Councilmember FLEWELLING. Mr.
Thank you
FLEWELLIng.
very much, Mr. Chairman. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, in times of trouble, we search for you. We seek answers to our problems. We seek comfort and we seek relief. We find our relief in your tender mercy, comfort in your loving embrace, and answers to our questions in humble submission to your will, while bearing witness to your almighty power. Father, we thank you for all the gifts you've given us, but especially for relief from the present trouble that we have. We pray for our brothers and sisters who are affected, those who have lost loved ones, those who are hungry or thirsty or without shelter tonight. Father, we ask that you relieve their suffering. Please bless this assembly. We ask that you guide us in doing your will and lead us safely home. We ask all this through your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Public notice of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of County Council to amend the agenda as follows. The removal of item number 18. As discussed in the executive session, Mr. FLEWELLING has offered a motion to add to the County Council agenda. When you add motions to the County Council agenda that are not on the County Council agenda that has been published, it requires a supermajority of council in order to do that. To add this item on will require 8 votes of County Council. Furthermore, because this is a final action, it has to be of an emergency nature that is so prescriptive that we have no choice but to do it this evening. Unfortunately, this particular item does not meet that goal. So we can add this item, but we will have to suspend this item to a future agenda or not have it on the agenda until the 26th. So, Mr. FLEWELLING, do you wish to alter the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, can you give me your assurance that it'll be on the agenda for the next County Council meeting?
Absolutely. Now that we know exactly what we have to do, we will have it on the next agenda.
Well, then I'll make a motion to remove item, was that 18?
In item number 18.
I make a motion to remove item 18 and delay action on the motion that I had at the caucus meeting regarding the lawsuit.
Okay, well, you don't even have to do that. We will have no action taken at all. And what we'll do is we'll just remove item number 18. The next item, we know exactly what we have to do. It will be part of the County Council meeting of April 26th. And then it will be duly noted.
My motion.
Okay. May I have a second to the motion to remove item number 18?
Second.
Mr. Glover makes the second. We have it duly motioned and second to remove item number 18 from the agenda. Is there any objection to removing item number 18? I see no objections. Therefore, item number 18 is removed from the agenda. We will now go back to approving the agenda as amended. May I have a motion to do that, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
Ms. Howard makes the second. It has been duly motioned and second to approve the agenda as amended. Are there any objections to the new agenda? Seeing none, without objection, the motion is approved. I see no objections. Therefore, the agenda is approved. Item number 5 is the approval of the minutes of January 25th, 2021. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Lawson makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Seeing no objections, the minutes are now approved. Next, we turn to our administrator's report. Mr. Greenway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to remove my mask so that everyone can hear me while I'm here at the podium. I would encourage anyone that comes up here, because we're on broadcast, to remove your mask while you're at the podium as well. The first item I want to update you on this evening is an event that occurred over Saturday and Sunday of this weekend just outside the city of Beaufort on Highway 21. If you're traveling from Beaufort and you go past the new hotels and what many folks call the Trench, I believe, that runs parallel to the Spanish Moss Trail, there is a series of billboards right there in that location, and there's a billboard, a single billboard, in the edge of the marsh on the other side of 21 as you're leaving town. Sarah, can you pull up those pictures for me, please? Adams Outdoor Advertising and all of the things that I'm going to go over with you this evening are based on appearances of a situation and alleged activities. We're not saying that these are in any way violations, but you all should be aware that we are pursuing these as potential violations of our ordinances. So you can see some posts lying there on the ground. Sarah, go to the next page if you don't mind. I'm sorry, it's kind of squirrely here. So you see that post, those posts right there. Those are new posts from an existing sign. You can't see the framework for the sign on the other side of the truck there, but these posts are new posts that have been completely installed. Adams was issued a permit or approval by the South Carolina Department of Transportation to do storm repair to these two existing signs. These, in my opinion, do not constitute repair. I think they more or less constitute demolition and reconstruction of new billboards, and we feel at the staff level that those violate our community development code, because you cannot structurally alter a billboard in the county. Go to the next picture, Sarah. I'm looking more for the McDonald's one. So as you can see there, you see an existing billboard right behind the new posts that have been stood up and are in a process of going vertical. While I was out there on site, you can see the other one kind of leaning toward the left there. So what we have done with this is we have issued a stop work order, even though the signs have been completely rebuilt, because Adams refused to stop work as I contacted them late Saturday evening. They continue to work on the signs after that and even into Sunday. And we are going through an enforcement process at current time with Adams, and we are going to continue to pursue any other legal remedies that may exist for us to take the appropriate action for what we feel is a violation of the Community Development Code in doing this, because I do not think that this constitutes repair. I believe, in my professional opinion as plan director, that this is a total reconstruction of billboards on the property, which we do not feel is in compliance with the CDC. So having said that, I'll pause here in case anybody has any questions or would like to make any comments about that. Okay, Hearing none, we'll move into the next phase of my process, and I'm going to call for my first employee that I highlight. We will be highlighting 5 employees this evening. Our first employee that I'm going to highlight is Miss Amanda Dickman. She has been recently appointed as our library director. Amanda has been named the library director for Beaufort County. She has been with the county library since 2007 and most recently served as the deputy director of our library system. According to the board, they are very excited to have Amanda at the helm of our library system. Her vision of what the Beaufort County library system can and should offer to the community are totally in sync with their strategic plan. She has established solid relationships with the county staff and sees this as an incredible opportunity moving forward. I will tell you that in my time as the interim county administrator, I never much opportunity to work with Amanda prior to that, but I have found that last statement regarding solid relationships to be an understatement. She has been totally impressive to me, and I appreciate her service. Amanda holds a Bachelor of Arts in Speech Communication. She was a valedictorian and summa cum laude graduate of Charleston Southern University, and she holds a master's degree of Library and Informational Science from the University of South Carolina. She was selected by the Public Library Association to participate in the American Library Association's Emerging Leaders Mentorship Program and was awarded Beaufort County Librarian of the Year in 2016. I want to congratulate you, I want to thank you for your service, and I'm going to now turn the floor over to Councilmember Howard, who I think is more familiar with Ms. Dickman and her work than I, so I'm going to allow her to say a few words.
Mr. Chairman, it's such a privilege to see Ms. Dickman achieve this goal of hers, and the board that I'm the liaison to, the library board, just thinks the world of her. Her leadership and her communication skills have led the library to be of a great service during these trying times that we had, and the publicity that they did with all the programs has been just marvelous. I'm so happy for her, and I know the library board is extremely happy too. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to represent Beaufort County Library in Beaufort County, and I look forward to continuing to build upon the legacy of Mr. McBride laid and other administrators and continue bringing excellent library services to our residents. Thank you.
All the other employees this evening, I believe, are joining us through photos. So our next employee is Gary David, who works with our mosquito control department. He's an aircraft mechanic. He has served with us for 20 years. Gary maintains and repairs a plane and helicopter for the pilots to fly safely and effectively. I do have a picture of him here somewhere. I think it's coming up. After serving in the Air Force during the Vietnam War, Gary has serviced more than 4 dozen different types of military, commercial, and civilian aircraft. Overall, he is proud to possess an FAA airframe and power plant license for 40 plus years, as well as an FAA inspection authorization for 20 years. There he is, there working for us. Gary, thank you very much for your service to our country and also to the county. Let's give him a round of applause. Our next employee is also unable to attend as William Stanley in our records management division. He's a records management technician. He has been with the county for 10 years. He is an asset to records management department, and he serves in the capacity of records management technicians. He is responsible for document scanning, microfilming, and record storage and retrieval, but he also helps with the backup mail courier. That's a very important job in the county, believe it or not. We receive a lot of mail, so we have to have those guys going around every day, and so appreciate that. He is also known as records management IT tech guru. He is the go-to person when it comes down to assisting with computer-related issues in that department. Williams' role within Records Management Department has allowed him to provide both service and assistance to many different departments within Beaufort County government. He credits his coworkers and supervisors, both past and present, with allowing him to work in an enjoyable, productive environment, providing him with continual opportunities to help contribute to the department's overall success. So let's give him a round of applause. Oh, I did skip over one thing. Something unique about him is he enjoys listening to music on traditional CDs rather than the newfangled digital streaming media. So he and I would get along fine. I'm not too much into this newfangled stuff either. So our fourth employee is Oliver Bradley, solid waste and recycling. He's a convenience center attendant at Cuffey Center in St. Helena. He has been part-time with us since August of 1994, which is almost 27 years. He assists patrons and monitors disposal of solid waste material at the county convenience centers. He keeps the center clean and dispatches containers for timely pickup. With the new decal system, Oliver scans patron decals and keeps traffic tallies. Something interesting about him that he's willing to share publicly is that he has also been working for a company cleaning the Ladies Island Elementary School for 17 years. He likes his job and enjoys all of the people that he meets and interacts with at the Cuffey Convenience Center. So let's give him a round of applause. Our final employee this evening is Angel Marskankowski. She is participating via Zoom this evening. I'm going to see if we can get her up on the screen. As I understand it, she's participating via Zoom from Hawaii. I hope she's there on pleasure, and I admire an employee who gets recognized that's willing to give up being outside in Hawaii to allow the county administrator to read or say stuff about her. So thank you for joining us tonight. She is solid waste recycling. She is the business manager for solid waste and recycling. She recently left disaster recovery to take that position. She began her employment with us in 2017. She filled a key role as we planned for hurricane responses. She then transferred to solid waste and recycling department in 2020 as the business manager, and she is the main contact for our new decal system with 43,000 approved applications. So she's been very busy. Something unique about her is that as a stress reliever, she enjoys baking. And a little known fact is that Angel was in beauty pageants from age 1 through 19. However, was never on the toddlers and tiaras that's on the cable show. She has never hesitated to be the face for the local media and county channel updates. There you are. Angel, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the recognition. I couldn't do it without our wonderful solid waste and recycling department.
Thank you very much. Enjoy Hawaii.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Great,
you very
thank
much.
you. Okay, our next item is item number 7, a proclamation to Hopeful Horizons in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And that will be done by Council Member Larry McElynn. Mr. McElynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to read this proclamation into the record and to have it presented to Hopeful Horizons. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is a pervasive problem in all communities and has public health implications for every community member in Beaufort County. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment impact our community, as seen by statistics indicating that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will experience some sort of sexual violence in their lifetime. And whereas child sexual abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 7 girls and 1 in 25 boys will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. And whereas Hopeful Horizons, our local children's advocacy, domestic violence, and rape crisis center, has served more than 1,300 primary victims and more than 700 secondary victims in the year 2020. And whereas staff and volunteers of Hopeful Horizons urges every person to speak out against harmful attitudes and actions that lead to violence, however small, and whereas all people are encouraged and empowered to report all types of violence in the community to make it safer, and whereas prevention of sexual violence is possible, therefore we must work together to increase education, awareness, and community involvement, as well as support survivors in order to connect them with services. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Beaufort County Council joins advocates across the United States and the state of South Carolina to proclaim the month of April 2021 Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and urges all citizens to observe this month by becoming aware of the tragedy of sexual assault, supporting those who are working towards its end, and participating in community efforts aimed at changing the culture of violence. Dated this 12th day of April, 2021, signed by Joseph Passaman, Chairman, Beaufort County Council. So I offer my congratulations to Hopeful Horizons, and I congratulate them also for the good work they have done over the many, many years that they have been present here in our community. Mr. Passaman, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, and thank you very much for that. And you will also be reading the proclamation under item number 8, which is a proclamation to Beaufort County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division in honor of Alcohol Awareness Month.
Is the recipient from Hopeful Horizons still at the podium?
They are not here and they're not online, but Steve Donaldson is online with us, so we'll give him an opportunity to say a few words after you read this particular proclamation.
Hopeful Horizons isn't there, but now we're going to do the next one, yes?
Yes.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, okay. Okay, this is another proclamation for Alcohol Awareness Month. Whereas across our county and our state, alcohol abuse is a major public health problem that affects people of all ages, races, and ethnic backgrounds. And whereas alcohol abuse and addiction are public health issues with serious consequences for all South Carolinians, including increased costs to the healthcare, welfare, and criminal justice systems, as well as to the business community. And whereas alcohol use by young people, a critical problem for our county, is a major cause of loss of life for people under 21, and alcohol-related car crashes are the leading cause of those deaths. And whereas across South Carolina, 22% of high school students admit to consuming 5 or more drinks in a row on more than one occasion in the past month, while 53% of college students admit to binge drinking on more than one occasion in the past 2 weeks, with 6th through 9th graders increasing use of alcohol by 12.46% from 2019. And whereas the dangers of alcohol abuse go beyond college students, as Beaufort County is ranked South Carolina's highest county for heavy use of alcohol by adults, and 3rd for binge use of alcohol. And whereas April is nationally recognized as Alcohol Awareness Month, giving public health bodies, community centers, and treatment facilities a chance to increase their efforts to reach people who may not fully appreciate the dangers of unhealthy alcohol consumption. And whereas the Beaufort County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Department uses the month of April to launch campaigns on social as well as traditional media to draw attention to alcohol awareness and work towards decreasing the stigma people with alcohol use disorders through education, discussion, and community mobilization. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Beaufort County Council proclaim April 2021 as Alcohol Awareness Month, dated this 12th day of April, 2021. Joseph Passaman, Chairman, Beaufort County Council.
Thank you.
Mr. Donaldson, would you like to say a few words? If you're talking, you're on mute.
I was on mute. That's highly unlike me. Anyway, good evening, and I just wanted to thank you for acknowledging April as Alcohol Awareness Month. alcohol is still the number one substance of abuse that we treat at Macadad. Currently, 76% of our patients have alcohol substance use disorders, despite the opiate epidemic that many people hear about. It can't be overlooked that alcohol is still a major substance of use that creates hardships in our community. I might also add that we are open again for both in-person and virtual services. So citizens, if you need our services, we have 2 locations, one in Beaufort and one serving the Bluffton-Hilton Head area. Please just give us a call.
And Steve, while you're there, may I say that we appreciate the leadership that you are providing at the Bureau. You're always present in the community, assessing the situations that you come across and providing creative solutions to the problems that you encounter. So I offer my congratulations and the congratulations of the entire body for the terrific work that you and your staff perform in the county on a daily basis. Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're now at the citizen comment portion. I received a number of citizen comments. We have individually as board members been emailed by individuals. Every one of those individuals has been acknowledged who has emailed the individuals or the county in general. We have several people in person tonight who want to speak on various issues. They are the mask ordinance, lost, the noise ordinance, May River, and the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation. And every member of the public who is recognized shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. Now that becomes problematic because with the 27 people, we're going to be here for over an hour and our meetings are scheduled to end at 8 p.m. So we're going to ask you to be kind enough when you come up, if you have something new to add to the prior individual, then please speak. If you are agreeing with the prior individual, please so state. This should be something that is pretty rudimentary. We, the county council, are required to deal with public health. It's defined as us promoting and protecting the health of people and the communities where they live, work, and play. Our ordinance, our face mask ordinance, specifically says, in order to protect, preserve, and promote the general health, safety, welfare, and the peace and order of the community, the county has and will continue to take steps to try and protect citizens, employers, and employees within the county from an increased risk of exposure to and transmission of COVID-19. So, we're going to begin with Eric Lawson. Eric Lawson, please step forward.
So my name is Eric Lawson. I'm a fisherman with Drifter Excursion Cruises in Hilton Head. But you say that we need to respect the science. And so just to give you some confidence that I can do that, basically I wanted to mention I've worked 40 years in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry. I have a degree in molecular biology from the University of California. I was in grad school during the AIDS outbreak, and I worked for Bayer, the people that invented aspirin, to study how to develop diagnostic testing for HIV virus, to investigate therapies, and how to preserve the blood supply against HIV infection. After that, briefly to ensure that you understand that I do know the science and what PPE is for. I worked for Genetic Microsystems. I was a engineer, senior engineer for GE Technologies, GE Healthcare Technologies, General Electric. I was a manager for regulatory affairs working with the FDA for Genzyme Corporation in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I was the senior manager for Affymetrix, and I worked as a director for Voisin Life Sciences, a European company based in Paris, France, and Lausanne, Switzerland. And I was a vice president for Metamark Genetics of Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I do know what PPE is, and I do know that masks are completely useless against viruses. I'd like to quote a colleague, Dr. Fauci, quote, "People in the United States should not be walking around wearing masks. Right now, people should not be wearing any masks." He emphasizes, there's no reason to be wearing a mask when you're in the middle of an outbreak. Wearing a mask might make people feel a little better. It might even block a droplet, but it is not providing the protection that people think they're getting. Dr. Fauci continued, often there are unintended consequences. So in summary, masks don't work and they might even hurt. Another quoted source I'd like to quote is the FDA, with whom I've worked for 40 years. They say that common cloth fiber surgical masks must be labeled by the FDA not for use against viruses. The FDA law requires, and this is a legal thing with the FDA, the 21st Code of Federal Regulations, manufacturers and distributors of authorized products shall not label the product as an antiviral or medical device. A product labeling must not include statements that would misrepresent the product or create an undue risk in light of the public health emergency. The labeling must not include any express or implied claims for antimicrobial or antiviral protection or related uses. It must not indicate infection prevention nor infection reduction, and it must not, quote, viral filtration efficiencies. Such is the law according to the 21st Code of Federal Regulations. Furthermore,
You only have 3 seconds left.
3 seconds left. Okay.
Your time is up.
Viral particles are 0.1 microns, and the masks are over 100 micron pores, which is like trying to catch a mosquito with a hurricane fence. Thank you.
Next on our list is Mayor Stephen Murray.
Good evening. Feels good to be back in the council chambers. Appreciate you hosting this meeting in public. I'm joined with Mayor Lisa Sulka. We're here representing the 6 Low Country mayors. She's the longest tenured mayor in Beaufort County, and I'm the new guy in 4 months. So we thought we'd tag
So we're
team
watching out for him.
We tag team you. Yeah, she's going to poke me if I say something inappropriate, which I do from time to time. So we're here to talk to you about local option sales tax. And we know that you voted first reading and title only back in April of 2020. We appreciate that affirmative vote. And we also appreciate you putting it on the agenda tonight. We provided a letter last Friday, and we thought we'd reiterate some of the items that were in that letter. And so Act 388, going back to 2008, as most of you know, has created some real sort of sticky wickets for local governments. And one of those is how we raise millage. And so even if our residents come to us and say, we'd like you to raise millage to pay for parks or roads or sidewalks, we're unable to do that, says the General Assembly. It's also put a growing burden, what I'm calling a tightening noose, on 6% taxpayers. And I think a lot of times we talk about second homeowners as being the 6%ers. But the reality is 6%ers are also our long-term renters, which makes up a significant portion of our workforce, of our young working families. And as most of us know, the wages in Beaufort County don't quite sustain the quality of living or the cost of living that we have here in Beaufort County. So it's important for all of us to be sensitive about the tax burdens that we put on our workforce and folks in the 6% tax classification, in addition to business owners. So I went off script. I'm gonna go back on script and say it's important to remember that 6% properties include long-term rentals. We believe that increases have put a significant burden on our lower income population, a burden that will continue to grow. LOST will provide a significant credit on all tax bills, including 6% properties, providing property tax relief for all taxpayers. We also appreciate the concerns regarding LOST being a regressive tax, as most sales taxes are. And in isolation, we might agree. But given that 71%, almost 3/4 of collected sales tax would be rebated to property owners, and sales tax only applies to non-essential items in South Carolina, We believe loss is actually a progressive tax that more equally splits the burden of capital and operational needs between residents and visitors while providing real and personal property tax relief to all Beaufort County taxpayers. And finally, while we'd like you to support LOST, that the mayors have had a long-standing position supporting LOST for a couple of years now, in addition to our 6 municipal councils, we're not asking you to say that you like LOST tonight. We're simply asking that you give Beaufort County voters the opportunity to decide for themselves. We believe Beaufort County voters are smart enough. They will take the time to understand the pros and the cons of the local option sales tax in November of this year. And so we're simply asking you that state statute gives you the authority to either put it on the ballot or not put it on the ballot. If it were up to municipal governance, we would have done that years ago, but we don't have that authority. So we're simply asking that tonight you vote affirmatively to put the local option sales tax on the ballot in November of 2021. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard tonight, and thank you for serving the citizens of Beaufort County.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to take my 3 minutes, but if you would allow me to have 10 seconds, I support this. There's rarely a time where you have all the mayors and their councils agree on something, and we do. So I would ask all of you who represent us in our district to please put it on the ballot. Second thing, thank you, Councilman Lawson, because we don't get thanks enough for helping me with the red light. It's awesome. Thank you. Call your elected leaders when you have issues. And the plaid, it is Heritage Week. That is a giving tournament that gives back to all of our nonprofits and our students in our schools. So I just want to shout out to the Heritage Foundation. So happy Heritage.
Thank you. Okay, next is Greg John.
Hello. My name is Greg John. I'm an owner of 122 May River Road. This is the property being reviewed for zoning change. It's a third reading, I believe. I can't express how thankful I am that the council has so carefully reviewed this situation. We're so grateful that what we view as a deeply troubling and distressing circumstance is being taken very seriously by our county representatives. So thank you for that. I've thoroughly explained the history before to the council, so I will only do so again in a more condensed version tonight. Since moving here in 1990, my family and I have been ardent supporters of a sustainable growth plan for Southern Beaufort County. We have contributed decades of time and resources to invest in the area, its business community, and its residents. We have employed dozens and dozens of people and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax dollars. Looking beyond Hilton Head and Eastern Bluffton in the early 2000s, we knew development and growth would move out toward the Pritchardville area and beyond. We started to look for land to expand our business and to invest in the future of Bluffton. We were ecstatic when Lot 122 May River Road became available. This commercial property fit perfectly into the outline we and others perceived for the area. Permits had been available for gas stations, but we are not interested in that type of business here. Our plan was to enhance the community, create value, and a local benefit. Like many other people in the country, our plans were put on hold when the recession hit, and it hit hard. After the 2008 recession, things started to look up. A few years later, we decided there was hope again for our plans on this lot financially. At this time, I reached out to the Beaufort County government to get the ball rolling on our plans, only to find out the property had been downzoned to T3 Edge, which is basically a residential-only zoning. This was extraordinarily shocking and distressing to us, as one, we had not been informed of this potential, as the county did not directly contact property owners with this information in an attempt to save money for the county. And two, as a residentially zoned lot, this property is practically worthless. Nobody will build residential structures on this lot, on this frontage. It will remain an overgrown field where people dump trash and kids drink and get high at night. This lot was zoned commercial because it lends itself perfectly for a low-impact commercial space. As Mr. Hervichin rightly stated in a previous meeting, the government should never create nor destroy the wealth of its citizens, and in this case, at the current zoning, there has been an enormous amount of wealth destroyed. Let me assure you, You are not dealing with a developer or a very wealthy family by any stretch of the imagination. Many of the funds tied up in this property that have now been decimated are our retirement dollars and college tuition monies for our children and future grandchildren. Most of the neighbors and councilmen representing this district have shown support and approved rezoning this property to T2 Rural Center because it makes sense and is the right thing to do, not just for us, the owners of the property who are suffering financial hardship, but because it is right for Pritchardville and it is beneficial for this part of Bluffton. Once again, please accept our sincere thank yous for allowing this process to play out and to reasonably weigh the situation to determine the best outcome for everybody. Please remember, the council representing this district and the people surrounding this property that live there and work there and are raising families have unequivocally stated their support for this zoning change.
Sir, you've now gone way past.
I have half a sentence.
Please finish.
And some had originally expressed concern, have since changed their stance and voiced their support. Thank you again. I appreciate it. Sorry for going over. I couldn't read any faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. O'Toole. Are you here? What we'd like you to do is to meet with council on the 26th in executive session. Based upon what we discussed in executive session, there are questions that we have for you. We'd like you to bring Ashley Feaster with you and address council at that point in time, if that's acceptable to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Next on the list is Michael Thompson.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, those here and those in outer space. For 3 years, we held hands and we developed the noise ordinance of Beaufort County. I think you got my citizengram with my concerns about thanking you for the noise ordinance, and then my concerns about the non-enforcement part. And it's gotten to be an epidemic. I'm here on the concerns of those on the unincorporated parts of Beaufort County that are not here to speak up. They have already expressed their concerns to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office and has seen no action. So I'm here to carry the load for them. The city has developed, for their neighborhood, they've developed a membership, and each neighborhood has a member. And they meet with the city council. And the majority of those meetings is speeding, running red lights, loud cars, road racing. That is the topic of most of those meetings. I started a group called Nextdoor. I don't know if any of you folks are at Nextdoor, but I got tons of people wanting to know, how do I do this? How do I contact the sheriff's department? How do I get somebody to help me with the loud cars and the street racing and the running of the red lights? So I started helping those people. We need some support from the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. I have spoken to Sheriff Tanner numerous times about my concerns about not participating in the noise ordinance. The last time I spoke with him, he assured me that he had dB meters and he was training his folks and we were going to see some kind of action. The only action I've seen is from Beaufort City. Beaufort City Sheriff McDormand contacted me. He gave me a lieutenant day from his office to call when I heard anything happening in the city, any loud cars. This past weekend, it was like every loud vehicle in Beaufort County was in the city, coming from Trask Parkway, coming from Broad River Road. They were coming from everywhere. I was told from Captain Purdy to call the non-emergency number. When I called the non-emergency number this past weekend, it was like a Band-Aid for a gunshot wound, because I got absolutely no response, and the noise just kept going on all day. I cannot enjoy my property because of this, and we need to do something about the enforcement end. We all knew that when we were writing this thing, that enforcement was going to be an important part of it. And at the end of it, I expressed my concerns. We need your help to get enforcement taken care of.
Thank you. Okay. We've now covered all of the topics, and I'd still like to have some additional people be able to speak. As I said at the beginning, if you have something new to add, that's great. If you are here to reiterate everything somebody else said, please allow somebody who has something new. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night, and we have many things on the agenda we have to take care of. So, Kevin Phillips, discussing Lost. Is there something new to add?
I think Mayor Murray covered it.
Great, thank you. Lisa, do you want to?
I already did. Thank you.
Okay. Ann Ublis, is there something new to add to the mask ordinance?
My name is Anne Marie Ublis, and I'm here about the mask ordinance. Recently, I was taking my husband to Beaufort Memorial Hospital for pre-op testing. And I've never had a problem in the past wearing a shield, and I do that out of courtesy only because I cannot wear a mask. However, after being in the hospital at least 3 or 4 times a week with the shield, I was asked to leave after I registered my husband. The security guard came up to me and then demanded, why can't I wear a mask? And I explained to him, sir, you just violated the HIPAA Act. Then he turned around and demanded that I leave. And I said, sir, you just violated the American with Disabilities Act. After calming down a while, I wrote a letter to the chief surgeon at Beaufort Memorial. Within 24 hours, he was on the phone with me, apologizing profusely, retraining his staff, and setting up new regulations for people such as myself. At this point, this is not an emergency anymore. The governor does not extend the emergency. The state house and the state legislature just passed legislation restricting his ability to extend the emergency. I do not see why the county needs to extend the emergency and mandate a mask. At this point, Georgia is open, Florida is open, Texas is open. We should be open. It should be voluntary. It should be a personal, individual choice as to the color of our hair and what we wear on our face, if we wear anything on our face. So at this point, the county council has not, and I've asked several times for you to do this, notified local businesses and services about their legal responsibilities under the HIPAA Act and the American Disabilities Act. This ordinance, if it does not have that in there, is irresponsible, and it should be stated that when you go into a business or service, you may require it, but cannot mandate it. Because if you deny any citizen of equal participation in goods and services, you again violate both the HIPAA and the Americans with Disabilities Act. On these sheets I just passed out to you is the specific sections of those acts and the penalties that can range anywhere from $100 to $1.5 million, and under the HIPAA Act, up to 10 years in federal prison. If you don't notify the public of these responsibilities, you are not doing your job. Do not extend the emergency and give up on the mandate. Thank you.
What I'm going to do is, so that we will have additional time to have county council agenda items, there is a second process that we have at the end of the meeting for additional comments to be made. And what I would ask is, if there are people in here who have already spoken, there are people outside who wish to come and then speak before us. So we're going to ask you to leave and let them come in. We're going to take a couple more, another 5 minutes, and then we're going to go on to the meeting and then come back to this.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I think both of us agree that, and most of the council, that, the point of our citizens' comments is to make sure that we can hear our voices before our agenda items. Is there any way we could move the minutes from our option from the end of the meeting to the front of the meeting and add it on to this, so we can get as many people possible before we go over our agenda items, if they pertain to the items on our agenda?
Well, we do 15 minutes at a time, and we're going to be shortly coming up on 30 minutes for this first session. And we have an 8 o'clock hour, and I'm not sure that people are going to go past the 8 o'clock hour.
We would do the 15 minutes at the end no matter what though, correct?
Yeah,
So moving it to this side wouldn't make any difference if we had to extend it anyways, because if we didn't come to the end of the meeting in time, we would still have to extend for that public
so
comment.
we're now at 30 minutes now. I've extended the 15 minutes already.
Mr. Chairman, would it be helpful if we extended or made a motion to extend public comment beyond 15 minutes? And if we also made a separate motion to extend the meeting time from...
When we get to 8 o'clock, if someone makes a motion to extend, we'll see if that passes. Anybody want to make a motion at this point in
Do that
time?
right now, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. FLEWELLING.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, you can do that right now as well, extend beyond the 8 o'clock hour.
Yep,
I can't, yeah.
I'll make that motion that we extend past the 8 o'clock hour.
I'll second that motion.
all right, motion and second, any discussion? Will this be unanimous, or do I need to call the roll?
Or now.
Mr.
Call the
Chairman.
roll, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, say again?
Call the roll.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
I don't think this should be open-ended. It would seem to me that we ought to extend it for not to exceed 1 hour. I will ask to amend the motion to not to exceed 1 hour.
Okay. There has been an amendment to the motion to go past the 8 o'clock hour to extend the meeting no more than 1 hour. Is there a second to the amended motion?
Second motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard seconds the motion. Is there any discussion about that? Seeing no discussion, I will call the roll on the amendment to extend for 1 hour past 8 o'clock. I will begin with Mr. Rodman, you made the motion.
Yes.
Ms. Howard, you were the second?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
No.
Mr. Dawson?
No.
Mr. FLEWELLING?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon?
No.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McElynn?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mr. Somerville?
Yes.
The chair says yes, we will be the motion passes to limit it to 1 hour. All right? So, we'll now go back to the original motion as amended to extend the meeting to 9 o'clock. I will call the roll. Mr. FLEWELLING, you made the motion.
Did I? I thought that was Mr. Cunningham, but.
Mr. Hervishon made the motion, I seconded.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I had, okay. Mr. Hervishon?
Yes.
Yes.
Cunningham? Mr. Dawson?
No.
Mr. FLEWELLING?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McElynn?
Yes.
Mr. Rodman?
Yes.
Mr. Somerville?
Yes.
Chair says yes, that motion passes. We will be till 9 o'clock. Okay, so it is now 7 p.m. We'll go another half hour in order to complete all the agenda items in time to do that. So we'll now be at Mike Spalding. Moving on, Helen Spalding. Melanie Combs. Benjamin, talking about Lost.
Mr. Chairman, I think some of those people might be in the lobby waiting.
What were the names again, sir?
Say again?
What were the names again?
Okay, we're looking for the Spaldings, Melanie Combs, Benjamin, and I can't read Gilman, I think it is.
How much longer are we gonna go?
I'm going to 7:30 and that's it.
Okay. I thought the extension was to get our business done, but that's okay.
Well, we're doing both sessions now so that we can get to the
So we don't have to
business
do
of
it.
council done before 9 o'clock.
We don't have to do another session at the end.
No.
Correct. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
These are the Deckers from Bay River.
Okay, come forward, please.
Yeah, we're Buddy and Jeannie Decker. We lived at 5 Benton Lane and 3 Benton Lane, which adjoins the property on May River Road, which is zoning. And we just want to let you know that we're all for it. We're extremely for it, simply because we've been there 20-some years, and that area has really changed. They claim it's rural. It's not rural anymore. It's just not. But we are all for it. We've talked to the other neighbors all around us. They couldn't be here. They're definitely all for it. I know I can't speak for them, but it would be a good thing for that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in here who is on the list to speak regarding the mask ordinance? Is there anybody outside there that wants to come in and speak about the mask ordinance?
Yes, sir, it's a group that's coming in and they're going through security, it's just taking a minute. They were all outside. Do you want to take this recess to use the restroom or something?
No?
I'm here for the May River. Yeah, you want me to?
Please, come up.
All right. I'm not sure if she can post, we had a photo submitted of what we'd like to.
Your name, sir?
Blaine McClure.
Okay.
Thank you, council members, for hearing what we want to do with lot 122 May River Road. It's very important to us for the reasons that Greg John mentioned. It's an investment we made in the community. It's retirement funds, it's children's college education funds. So it is something that's very important to us. I'm a father of 4. My kids go to school in the community. And sorry, used to that. Members of the local church down the street on May River Road were actively engaged in the betterment of the community. I want to first say that I'm not a real estate developer. I'm not any type of real estate professional for that matter. I'm merely a stormwater engineer with an investment in this property. I live in the vicinity, and as I said, we have no interest in being a part of any development that would be the detriment or that would not serve as a benefit to the community and the surrounding neighbors. From the first public hearing meeting that we had, as Greg pointed out, the county mentioned that the reason we weren't notified about our property being rezoned, because I want to make sure this is resounding, this property was commercial. It was downzoned when they changed the nomenclature of zoning. So I feel like we're being misguided when we say we're trying to rezone something. We're trying to get back what was once purchased. But the reason we weren't notified properly in one of the statements in the prior public hearings is because there wasn't adequate funding to provide proper notification. And so we found out the hard way that we were the ones damaged financially by this.
we would have voiced our concerns at that time, and perhaps wouldn't be in this position today. Our desire is to have a space on this property that serves the community and enhances our livability. We want this zoning to allow for an accounting office, legal office, design center, real estate office, investment brokerage firm, just low impact office space. The property's prior zoning allowed for much more intense commercial uses and was already permitted on 2 occasions for gas stations. And this is not our intent. I've highlighted that. You can't see it on my paper, but we do not have any plans, and I'm not sure anybody would have a benefit of the gas station. If it's possible, I would like to submit a photo. I don't know that we submitted it up on the screen. A similar property down the street. We have numerous letters of support. We had adjoining property owners that just spoke, Buddy and Jeannie, and we've got overwhelming support. There were a couple of letters of concern that I think the representative has mentioned in last meetings, and those same people have written more updated letters recently that have overturned their opposition, and they're in full support. This will be a win for the community, our neighbors, if we support the zoning correction. And I feel like we have the support of a lot of council members. We'd like to have a majority. Councilmember Lawson has been an advocate, and very much we appreciate that support. Thank you again for hearing our concerns, and we very much value and appreciate your support in correcting the zoning change to T2 Rural Center.
Thank you.
All right, and this is an image of what we are proposing,
All right.
and that's not far. My time's up?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Chairman Testament, there's people online that have been on since the beginning. They logged in to speak.
Put them on one at a time.
They may not have heard you.
Okay, do you see? I don't see who's online. Is that Leah McCarthy that has her hand up?
Yes, sir, that's one.
All right, Leah, go ahead. Announce your name, your address, what you are speaking on.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, thank you. My address is 51 Spartina Crescent in Bluffton. I am talking about the mask ordinance as well. I'm a 34-year resident here in Beaufort County, as well as a multi-business owner. I'm asking you today for you to coordinate with all the towns in Beaufort County to have an expiration date on this mask mandate on or before May 15th, and replace it with a resolution encouraging citizens to continue to follow the CDC recommendations, which do encourage wearing a face covering when unable to socially distance, frequent hand washing, sanitizing, etc. Mr. Chairman and Council, this resolution will be similar to the one that just got voted on in Horry County and is going to go into effect on April 30th. Council, your elected positions as public servants is to minimize the harm to our community, but not to stop a virus at all costs. This virus may never be at a 0 case level, and we cannot enforce face coverings indefinitely. We do know that we have flattened the curve according to the WHO, the CDC, and local DHEC. Council, I'm sure for every statistic and article that I have found stating that wearing a face covering is not proven effective for reducing the spread of COVID-19, and I can go through them, but in an effort of time, I won't. You may have one that supports the contrary. However, many of us are relying on hard factual data out there that supports herd immunity, healthy immune systems, and antibodies. Council, if you ignore the complete picture of the statistics and which do not support the use of masks and the reduction of this virus, you're exposing your bias on this issue, as well as doing a disservice to a strong majority of the citizens here in Beaufort County. I'm asking you to please follow the lead of our governor, as we do not have any statewide mask mandates. Council, the leaders of our town and municipalities within Beaufort County have eyes and ears on all of you tonight. Although you claim it's too difficult or too confusing to residents and visitors, if you expire this mandate before others, that's why I'm asking for the May 15th date, which is the day before the town of Hilton Head meets to discuss the extension. And I just simply believe that they're all looking to all of you tonight to take the first step in ending this mandate that seems to be never ending. Thank you all for your service and have a good night.
Thank you.
The next one is Ava.
Ava. You're on mute. Can you state your name and your address?
Yes, this is Don DeVille. I'm sorry, I think I'm logged in on Zoom with my daughter's login.
Okay.
Address.
You're not coming up as a cat, are you?
Hopefully not.
was a minute ago.
Is 50 Daffodil Farm Road in Bluffton. And same thing with the mask mandate. Looking to you guys to take away the mandate. At this point, I believe it's unnecessary. I believe that people have the freedom and desire to choose what they need to do that works best for their family. We have a business here in Bluffton. And I think the citizens here are wise enough to figure out their own course. I think that everybody has, most of the people that needed and desired to get a vaccine has chosen to do so and had the ability to do so. And I think at this point in time, I think it's just our responsibility as people to be able to deal with this the best way we see fit and to not have the government mandating things to be done in our lives that we can make our own choices on.
Thank you.
Ryan is next.
Ryan,
Yes, sir. He's on.
go ahead. We can see you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm under my husband's name, so probably same thing. My name is Shannon Fallscroft. I reside at 117 Great Heron Road in Bluffton. And I am also commenting that I agree with the prior individuals that spoke to and implore your council to end the mask mandate. Despite the lack of clear evidence to support, many people continue to make a what's the harm approach to masking. However, there is harm. And countless studies illustrate the harms of mask wearing. Headaches, lack of concentration, dental issues, facial rashes, inhalation deep into the lungs of damaging fibers and bacteria that reside on the masks, just to name a few. Studies also show that elevated CO2 affects brain function and development, which is counterproductive to learning. It is time for this council to retake control of medical decision-making back from the public health agencies and put it back into the hands of individual citizens and parents for their children. As you know, many area schools follow the policies as set by the local governments and municipalities. So I ask you and your council to seriously deliberate on these harmful effects that the mask policies are causing our children, our community, and please reverse course. Repeal these mandates and make masking optional. You have an opportunity to lead in this area and give our area youth and our community at large the best chance for success. Furthermore, your courage to repeal the mask ordinance will set a precedent for the towns to coordinate in the county to follow your lead and do the same. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Last one is Corey.
Corey.
Yes, hi. Actually, I'm his wife, Katie Vernon. We live at 15 Pickens Street on Ladies Island. You say, Chairman, that the county council's responsibility is to protect the safety of the public. Well, it seems logical to me to expect the council to prove the need of a medical-based policy to protect public safety, citing data-based, peer-reviewed scientific or medical studies. What studies do you cite to show the necessity and effectiveness of general masking of the public to reduce the death rate of COVID-19? And I say death rate because case rate has no bearing on the seriousness of an illness. If it did, the common cold would be considered a very serious illness. So again, what studies do you cite to legitimize the necessity of a mask mandate?
Thank you for your comment.
Molly.
Good evening, council members. My name is Molly Sandman. I live at 114 Pinecrest Circle, and I just wanted to come online to agree with all of the speakers that have backed expiring the mask mandate. The only thing that I would really have to add to that is per both South Carolina DHEC and Lieutenant Governor Ovett, our state ranks in the top 5 nationwide in vaccine administration speed and efficiency. Those that are at the highest risk have had access to obtaining the vaccine and the actual protection that they need. For those younger and at far lower risk levels, continuing to keep a mandatory mask mandate in place is both exhaustive and unwarranted. CDC data just simply does not show that there's any kind of significant transmission risk among children and teens. It's heartbreaking to me to think of our children being masked in school for 8 hours while only getting very brief periods of rest from their facial coverings. Us as adults, we can take a break. We can walk outside. We can close our office door. They can't. Our children are mentally exhausted from this, and it's taking a toll. When you consider the mask mandate in and of itself, it's selective. When we enter a restaurant, we're asked to wear a mask to the table, but can remove it while seated with ventilation systems and ceiling fans blowing shared air all around us. Are we in a bubble of protection at the table? Of course we're not. Likewise at the gym, we're asked to wear a mask as we enter, but not while exercising. So are germs only at the front door? Again, of course they're not. Finally, we visit the grocery store. We handle our groceries. The cashier handles our groceries. The bagger handles our groceries. We touched a well-used pen pad to pay, leave the store, and what's the first thing we do? We touch our faces to take our masks off. We scratch our noses and we wipe our cheeks. So did the mask really do anything? Were we safer? No, we were going through the motions of mask wearing selectively. So does council believe they work or not? As we see our COVID positive cases going down and our hospitals not being overwhelmed, one has to ask the question, why? Why wasn't mask wearing working last June? If they weren't, why were the numbers going down significantly in September? How about November? Was it the masks worked or just the simple fact that our population is getting closer and closer to herd immunity? The usage of masks should be a personal choice, one that's made by the individual or parents, weighing the pros and cons of usage and not something that's being mandated by our elected officials. Wash your hands, stay at home if you're sick, eat good foods and exercise. Please, I implore you, help the people that you govern come out of this. Help us see one another's faces again. Help our children experience some degree of normalcy. Thankfully, Governor McMaster never issued a statewide mandatory mask mandate and has lifted the mandate that he did put in place for state government properties. Please follow his lead. Our towns are looking to you to lead the way. Expire the mandatory mask mandate for our county on May 15th and help us take a huge step forward. Thank you so much for your time and your service.
Any others? Not online? Okay. Anybody here that needed to speak, please come forward. Do you have anything to come forward? Please state your name, address. Do you have something new to add about the mask ordinance?
My name is Melissa Tolino, and I live on Horizon Trail in Bluffton, and I'm here to speak about the mask mandate on the position of special needs children. My son, who has severe speech apraxia, also who has sensory processing disorder, the mask is just, he can't get an exemption. So in order for him to go to school, he has to wear a mask that, one, inhibits his speech, sets off every sensory processing in his entire body, but yet he needs to go to school because he needs his services. Without services, he's regressed. It's been 13 months, and I've tried to keep the mask off my children's face as long as I possibly can until they need to enter into school. So I'm asking you please to drop this today, because it's not just about one select group. There's other children, there's other people in the community, especially our children, socially and emotionally, are the ones who are being affected the most at this point. As my 8-year-old said today, please, Mom, hopefully they'll go and they'll get rid of this mask mandate, because I want to enjoy school again. So a mask on his face for 7 hours he's not enjoying school. My other son, who has the speech apraxia, he said, why do I have to cover both of my spots where I breathe out of? Are you thinking about the children? Because at the end of the day, that's what it needs to start going to. The adults are living their lives. The children are the ones who are in school suffering. Ask a child, like my son is in 6th grade with the severe apraxia. He says he's terrified to pull down his mask because he doesn't want to get yelled at. But at the same time, it's overloading him sensory-wise, and he's coming home and we're dealing with the meltdown of it. Nobody's in my house, nobody's taking care of my child, nobody's helping us. We are alone. And at this point, I just implore all of you, just drop this mask mandate, because like everyone said, the governor is there's no mask mandate. So leave it up to the people. You choose, you do you, I do me. If a child It doesn't have to be mandated to wear a mask and doesn't want to wear a mask, that's up to them. If a parent wants them to wear a mask, then that's their right, that's their choice. Life is about choices, and you are taking those choices away from us. And I am asking you, please, as an elected official, give that back to us.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Can I get your name one more time, please? Can I get you?
Alyssa Tolina.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Please state your name,
Jennifer Yeager.
your address.
I'm so sorry about my appearance. I had no idea that we were going to get to do this. So thank you so much for extending this time to allow us to speak. So I work in a ministry with wounded women that are broken and hurt. And sometimes I ask them, they don't want to go places. They're scared, right? They're scared to go to Kroger. They're scared to go because of COVID. So everybody's scared, right? So I asked her one day, I said, what is it going to take for you to go back out to Kroger, go to the store, do these things? And she said, well, I guess when people, take the mask off. And I was like, take the mask off? Well, I would think you would want that because they protect us, right? And she's like, no, when people take the mask off, I won't be scared anymore. So that we're not living in fear. We're not in this constant place of fear where we have created fear into every human being and everything that we do. And the Word of God says He doesn't give us a spirit of fear, right? He doesn't do that. So we have got to step out of this fear and not live like this anymore. We are making people feel scared of everything. And I just don't believe that we're required to live like that. We are not called to live in fear. That is not what we are called to do. So that's. I know that you kind of wanted something a little different. You're like, okay, so that's something different, right? Mm-hmm. So can we think about that? Can we think about what this has done, what COVID has done, what this pandemic has done? It's done nothing but create fear. And it's time for us to get away from this fear. Just get away from the fear, right? Okay. All right. Thank y'all so much.
Any others? Come forward, please.
My name is Bonnie Miller. I live at 45 Mayfair Drive in Bluffton. I don't have anything prepared, but I do know that when this mandate was put out, that I felt like, where's the trust for people? For people to make their own decisions, to be the authors of their life and their future. Where is the trust in humanity, in people and their ability to make decisions for themselves that are smart and capable? And it's like, you guys have lost the trust for the regular everyday person to make a decision for themselves whether or not they think a mask will benefit them medically make a benefit to their bodies. And so they can choose to get educated by the media or by doing research or the CDC or in any way they want. But each person has the liberty and the freedom to make the choices that are important for themselves and for their bodies, and you guys take that away. So I ask, please, that you would give the freedom back to the people. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Last person.
My name is Cherry Norris. I live in Shipyard in Hilton Head. Masks don't work. I mean, they're divisive, they're destructive, they're dehumanizing. They make us breathe in our own bacteria. They cause more harm than good. Even Dr. Fauci wrote an article in 2008 stating there were more respiratory deaths from wearing a mask than there were from the Spanish flu. The CDC says that masks are 1.32% effective. The virus has a 99.7% cure rate. Those of us like myself who have had COVID know that it is no more than a very strange flu. Those of us who have researched beyond the propaganda of mainstream media know masks are not about protecting our health, because if it were, people would be lined up for HCQ, ivermectin, vitamin D, and zinc. Alcohol and cigarettes would be banned. McDonald's and other fast food chains would close. Twinkies, Oreos, soft drinks, etc. would be removed from our grocery shelves. And obese people would be quarantined to fat farms where they'd be forced to diet and exercise. Masks are not about our health. but they do work as a tool to divide and control us. They are outward reminders of fear and conflict. They turn us against family and friends. And what's shocking is that no one in our local government arena of this whole area seems to display any rational or critical thinking to this mandate. It is unconstitutional. We are not a tyranny in America. The last I checked, it is about freedom of people, freedom of choice, and we the people want our freedom and want our freedom of choice. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close the public comment section, and we're going to move to the action items. First are our liaison and committee reports. I would ask the chairs of the various committees who have consent agenda items to speak. We'll begin with the Community Services Committee. Mr. McElynn. You're still on mute.
I know, getting there. Okay. This is an item originating from the Community Service Committee. It's a resolution that we're going to act on this evening, accepting a donation of playground equipment from the Daufuskie Island Council and authorizing the county administrator to execute documentation associated with the acceptance of the donation. We need this resolution because of liability issues related to the use of this equipment on Beaufort County property. So for us to accept this gift, which has been funded through private action on Daufuskie, we have to pass a resolution allowing us to accept the gift and accept, of course, liability for its installation and use. The next item, number 2, is a resolution to commission an animal service officer, and that will be in the Public Safety Department. We met the individual who is going to be commissioned this evening as a result of this resolution. It was introduced to us by the Assistant County Administrator, Phil Foote. Welcomed him to service, but of course he can't start until this resolution is passed.
Thank you. Next is Finance Committee, Mr. Lawson.
Yes, we have a third reading of an ordinance approving the 2021 awards of local accommodations and hospitality. I'd like to thank Hayes Williams and Pinky Harriet for their hard work with that. Then we have a second reading of an ordinance to use the $5 million in fund balance to defease bonds.
Can you turn that person off?
I like the background music.
A little build-up. I like that. It's like special treatment for you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilson, are you finished?
I am finished. Should we go again? I kind of like the background music. There's kind of a little ambiance to it.
Ms. Howard, would you do natural resources, please?
Yes, certainly. The first thing we have on the agenda from Natural Resources is a contract award for the sale of timber. This is on. This was drawn up by our passive park and our contracting section. And as we have stated in the past, our goal is to thin timber on some of our passive properties that we own to better enhance the natural environment of these parcels. And we had one bidder, so this is an award for that contract to S.A. Allen Timber Company. The second is a resolution to execute a joint ownership and operating agreement between the county and the town of Hilton Head for the property known as the Ford Shell Ring Preserve. So this is basically an intergovernmental agreement. The last one is a resolution to authorize the interim county administrator to execute a lease agreement between Beaufort County and the town of Hilton Head and historic Mitchellville Freedom Park for the property known as the Beach City Road parcels. And this will allow that property to be used to support historic Mitchellville Freedom Park. And this will help Mitchellville Freedom Park in things like parking and other things. Of course, it will be assessed as to historic and archaeological value before it's turned over for use by them. And that concludes what we did in Natural Resources Committee.
Thank you. Mr. Greenwood.
Chairman, that last item with regard to the lease for Mitchellville Park, two things with that. One, we'll have to get Hilton Head Island to agree to that lease as well because the property is joint ownership. But two, we're okay with you voting on the resolution tonight. The resolution would not take effect until we conduct a public hearing, and we will do that as soon as possible.
So it'll be contingent on that, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And finally, Mr. Somerville, the executive committee items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 items coming out of executive committee. First is a resolution to set forth a uniform policy for processing, responding to, and tracking requests for public records in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act. This will hopefully clarify and make consistent all responses that we give to requests for information under the Freedom of Information Act. Second item is a resolution to authorize the interim county administrator to accept FAA grants. This is kind of perfunctory. Obviously, somebody has to accept them, and we would like for it to be our administrator. And the third item is a resolution authorizing the settlement of claims related to the CARE environmental waste disposal site. This is a disposal site for hazardous waste that the county has used along with a lot of other counties and cities for a long time, and there's lawsuits involved, and this will, I believe, limit our exposure to those lawsuits and allow us to resolve it in a reasonable manner. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, so then we're at item number 11, which is the consent agenda. I would ask for a motion from a member of council.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that we remove item number 8
from the consent agenda.
That's correct.
Okay. Item number 8 will be moved. Okay, may I have a motion for the remaining items on the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion for the consent agenda.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dawson makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be accepted without objection for items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. Seeing no objections, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to item number 12 in the action items. May I have a motion for item 12? Which is an ordinance extending the state of emergency.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard makes the motion.
A second.
Mr. Glover makes the second. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead, Mr. FLEWELLING.
I would probably prefer to have somebody speak in favor of the motion before I speak, but I remain adamantly opposed to this state of emergency or so-called state of emergency. And contrary to what Ms. Nora said during public comment, there have been several of us that have been opposed consistently to both the state of emergency and the imposition of the mask ordinance that we have, the mandate for the masks. My concern with the state of emergency is we have known for a long time that we're not in an emergency. This is a known quantity that we have. We know the infection rate, we know the hazard to the public that we have, and we've designed an appropriate response to that. It is certainly not an emergency under any stretch of the imagination anymore. And we need to deal with this as just a public health issue that we can have our regular response to. We don't need to have an emergency, and we don't need to call this an emergency anymore. Thank you.
Any other one? Mr. Lawson.
Yes, I will actually vote for extending the state of emergency. And the biggest reason is because it allows us to handle and have virtual meetings. There are some of us that obviously aren't here tonight that don't want to be here because of the exposure to COVID. That's the biggest reason that I will vote for the state of emergency. And remember that this expires as soon as the governor lifts his state of emergency, which he still has in place. This will automatically expire. So again, I will vote for extending the state of emergency.
Any other one wish to speak? Okay.
In response to that, Mr. Chairman, I hope that the council member would read item number 14 on our action item. That allows us to meet electronically, and any other issues, I haven't heard what other things this does.
Well, if I can respond, then, Mr. FLEWELLING, I agree. However, we need 2 more readings of that ordinance before it takes place.
Okay. We will begin with Ms. Howard. You made the motion.
Yes.
Mr. Glover.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
I'm going to say, well, I don't think we have a state of emergency, like Mr. FLEWELLING said. Mr. Lawson does make a point. You guys know that I oppose being virtual and I oppose the 14th thing on the agenda, but until that vote comes forth, I will vote yes for the state of emergency, only in the reason to allow those that are virtual for our committee and boards and commissions that they can continue that.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. FLEWELLING.
No.
Mr. Hervishon.
No.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McElynn.
Yes.
Mr. Rodman.
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Therefore, the extending the state of emergency has passed. Item number 13. An emergency ordinance requiring the wearing of face coverings under certain circumstances. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
That's Mr. Dawson.
McElynn.
I'm sorry, Mr. McElynn, did you second that or were you the first?
I think I was the first, but I'll be happy to go second if there was someone preceding me.
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Discussion.
I'll start us off.
Again?
Yeah. What I will say, I've been very public about my belief on this, and we can go down many different reasons, but I don't think that's going to make any difference in people's votes. But what I will say is this. Today, since Friday, we have had over 70 emails to our county regarding this one item on our agenda. Of those 70 that I've read, only 2 of them were opposed or 2 for us to continue the mandate. The other 68 wanted to remove it. Myself personally have received over 15 to 20 to my county email also, and only 1 of those was to extend, so that's another 14. Today in this room, we had over 20 people show up. We had another 10 outside and another 5 in a holdover room, and that doesn't include the ones that we had online. Our job as elected officials is to do one thing, and that's to represent our people. We had people come to this podium today from Hilton Head, Bluffton, Port Royal, and Beaufort. And not one of those people came out in support of moving forward on that mask mandate. I know a lot of you have had a letter or 2 letters about even a rezoning property that hindered you from voting to approve it because 1 or 2 people in a neighborhood were against it. Well, we have over 70, we have over 80 that are opposed, that have submitted in the last 72 hours to our county to remove this mandate. I think it's our duty to make sure that we take the first step. Myrtle Beach has already started to leave it to their businesses, and I think it's our time to do that as well, so then the towns can continue to make their decision. But it's our job to take the first step. And however they feel after that, that should be up to them, how they want to govern their towns. One of the things that was sent to all of us, we had a lot of these sent to us, but I'm going to read one from a business owner. His name's David Moffett. Said, I would like my representatives to vote against the mask mandate. As a small business owner, people often become argumentative and almost combative regarding others wearing masks. It's absolutely ridiculous that my staff and I have to play referee to a mandate that no officials are encouraging on the county level or town level. I personally choose to wear a mask when I have customers as a sign of respect to their beliefs, but you're putting small businesses in a horrible position with these ordinance, and it's absolutely reckless for them to continue for us to be the police force on them. Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Hervishon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just reiterate what I've said for 8 months now. I think it's well beyond time to end this. I think at best, the data on the efficacy of the masks is non-convincing, to be polite. And, you know, what I am, positive on is that we've got 6 members of council here tonight, finally, to hear public comment. And we saw a lot of, I thought, very compelling public comment, especially when it relates to kids. I've been saying that for months too. I think what hasn't been considered by this council, at least not effectively, is the impact on kids. And I think that that's our opportunity to show some leadership. So again, I'm going to be opposed to this, and I'll continue to oppose it if it does pass again. But that's it. Appreciate it.
Other comments?
Let's get by Mike, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
It's Mr. FLEWELLING, by the way, those of you who can't see him.
You can't see? Oh, sure you can. For the benefit of the public, I'm sure that on this particular issue, every member of county council has heard you, both your comments and your concerns for and against. This is something we've struggled with. I have to acknowledge every single member of council has struggled with this question in one kind of, or one way or another. We may have disagreed about it, but I respect each one of you for your commitment to listen to and care for and have concern for the members of the general public. I believe that the public has the intelligence and the wherewithal to make the decision about wearing a mask for themselves. This is a very unique situation in our history. It's the first time in recorded history that we've required everybody to do something to protect the few, instead of just requiring the few to protect themselves. We've transferred the burden of this care and this duty onto the general public as opposed to individually. And, you know, one, I think it kind of has the effect of making each individual feel a little less responsible for their own action. And so I'm going to oppose this, as I have since the very beginning. And I hope you all would finally understand that since we have reached 50% inoculation and prior COVID exposure, that we're very fast approaching herd immunity, and this is not going to be a problem in our county very much longer.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment.
Howard.
I've been volunteering for the last 2 weeks at Beaufort Memorial Hospital of my own accord since I was fully vaccinated. I disagree that we have reached herd immunity. I see so many people, different ages and stages of their lives. We're now finally seeing teenagers come in with their parents, and their parents are encouraging them to get vaccinated. I don't think we have reached herd immunity. I think the last number I heard for Beaufort County was 38%. That's great. We're leading the state. We're not there yet. And we are being visited by so many people from out of state. And the reason they come here is they know we still have a mask requirement. They could go to Florida. They could go to the beaches in Georgia and Florida. But no, they choose to come here. And I think a lot of them are coming here for that reason. I have grandchildren. They're 5 and 7. They're not in school 8 hours. They're not. I don't understand the parents who say they're suffering for 8 hours. They're not there 8 hours. They get a break. They get to go outside, and they get to play outside. So I disagree with a lot of the public that has spoken up, and I will vote for this again.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McElynn.
I think I'd just like to point out there were about 198,000 people who are living in Beaufort County. Every time we discuss this topic, I'm reminded that Winston Churchill said the world is fraught with opportunities to keep your mouth shut. I address this issue because of my uncertainty about the future, but based on a keen eye for certainty in the present. I think some of the comments made here tonight undervalue public health, and we are faced with the unknown about a fourth wave. It appears that with suggestions for a combination of easing restrictions, opening the economy, and an enhanced vaccination schedule, we are trying to outrun the spread of variants of COVID-19. And in my opinion, that's not likely to happen. As we enter a vigorous tourist season, with visitors arriving from all over, I think we may have a broad-scale community spread of the variants if we are not careful. I know for certain we are not fully vaccinated. I think it's under 50%, and we need 70 to 80% levels to achieve herd immunity. I also believe testing has fallen off for a variety of reasons, thus resulting in lower reported numbers than actually exist. So I think we should continue to wear masks and reduce exposure by distancing, because I think variants are circulating at levels we are still unsure of, and we should err on the side of caution. This is not theater, it's not a power grab, or to me an issue of overreaching government control. I think recommendations to reduce safeguards are reckless and made for all the wrong reasons. Personally, I would much rather see people mask, vaccinate, and not ventilate until we are clear on where we stand with this new threat. As our vaccination program rolls out, it will be enormously helpful and a powerful addition to all of our interventions. But we cannot give up on other measures, particularly because we're getting new strains that are highly contagious. Interventions like masks and social distancing will still be key ways to protect against those newer variants. Our return to normal life after vaccination is going to be gradual. It will not be like turning on or off a light switch. And how fast this happens is going to depend how quickly we vaccinate the population to reach herd immunity. This should not be an issue of public health versus the economy. These are not two opposing issues. I see this emergency precautionary measures as necessary, and I do not consider them to be an infringement on constitutional rights, nor a violation of due process. In closing, may I say, I live in a municipality where responsible official action on masking offers 40,000 residents and untold numbers of visitors enhanced public health protection. I will vote yes to extend that protection for another 61 days or to the end of the emergency ordinance for the 100,000 residents of unincorporated Beaufort County, with the sincere hope that this will be the last time I will have to take such an action. Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
I have had COVID, and most of my family, immediate family, also got COVID. I have now had the Pfizer vaccine, both vaccines. So as we look back a year and a month ago, we were asked to not let the emergency rooms become overwhelmed, and we did that. We then were asked to protect the elderly, and we did that. We were then asked to protect the vulnerable, and we did that. So following all the guidelines, we have gone through and been able to take this thing and bring it down. I mean, I do believe masks work. However, they're not 100%. There's no way that they are 100%. I believe that if you wear a mask, you are protecting yourself, and you're also then protecting others. And whenever we started this, I have voted for this ordinance for the past 3 times for us to continue. And as I've pointed out each time I've done it, to support the other municipalities that are in our area. And I've done it for that reason. I think Brian was the one that pointed out that Hardyville is in our county and they don't have a mask. So, but again, all the rest of the municipalities I have supported. At this time, I think the timing is correct. I think it's right that that we no longer need to have masks. If you would like to wear a mask, you can continue to wear a mask, and you will have protection from people giving you the virus and also protect from giving the virus. You still should social distance. You still should wash your hands on a regular basis. But as I've talked to people in the community and reached out and listened to what people have said, I think the timing is right, that I'm going to vote against this ordinance. And I would ask the municipalities, as I have supported them, if this doesn't pass, that they turn around and support me or support us in the same circumstance. And I just have one more comment as we move forward. You know, watching this back and forth politically, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, the last thing that we need to do is let politics become our religion, which I've seen that happen where people now are looking towards politics as what they're going after. But again, that's not what I think is important.
Any other comments?
Can I state one more thing?
Others before I turn it over to Logan one more time? Mr. Cunningham?
I just want to say, no matter what direction this vote goes into, we still do have a job to do. Businesses still have a business to run. I have always said that constituents and businesses should have the right to decide the way they want to do that. And as constituents, we should respect that. Those go hand in hand. So if we do move forward with the removal of this mask, ask anybody that goes to those businesses and those business owners that you continue to treat those owners with respect, the employees with respect, because they still have guidelines and procedures that they will put in place. That is their private business, that is their private entity. So I continue to encourage all citizens to respect that and make your decisions based on that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of you guys for your time.
Okay, I have one comment, a couple comments to make on what was said this evening. We had people come before us, as Mr. Cunningham said, from Hilton Head Island, Bluffton, Port Royal, Beaufort, every municipality that has a mask ordinance, telling us not to have a mask ordinance. Well, we have a problem because we represent the entire county, but primarily the unincorporated area. So if we undo the mask ordinance, the unincorporated area is affected only. We cannot undo what the municipalities have done. That's problem number one. Mr. Lawson said, we, over the course of time, protected various people, our elderly, first responders, people who had medical issues. We now have a fourth wave that we need to protect, and that is the young people who have not been vaccinated yet, who are now highly susceptible to the UK variant. And it's showing up in the hospitals. And finally, people addressed us as if we have the authority to go into the schools to tell them how to run their business. We do not. We have not talked about the churches. The churches are exempted. What we're saying is our ordinance is a design to educate people about wearing a mask to protect themselves from the transmission and receiving the transmission. Let's vote. The motion was made by Mr. McElynn. You will go first.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Flewelling,
No.
Mr. Glover,
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon,
No.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. Rodman,
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
Yes.
The chair says yes. The motion is defeated 7-4. Moving on to item number 14. May I have a motion for the first reading of an ordinance to make permanent the previously adopted emergency resolution allowing for electronic or hybrid meetings and other matters related thereto? Motion, please.
Joe, if we just go back real quick, see, the motion's defeated.
Yes, it needed 8 votes to pass.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's what I was under the understanding. Okay.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McElynn makes the motion.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't get who said the second. York made the second. Any discussion?
For number 14, yes, sir. Would it be possible to start discussing exempting county council meetings from it with the exception of being in a state of emergency? Meaning when the state of emergency is removed, that county council meetings would have to be in person.
You can ask. I would think.
I'd like to amend the ordinance that when the state of emergency ends, that county council meetings would not be allowed to be attended virtually. I think Mr. Robbins stated before that state legislator, Congress and the Senate also, if they want to vote, they have to be in person. I think we can continue committee meetings and board meetings virtually. I think it's very productive. I think it's the best use of our time. But I do think our county council meetings should be in person. I think this today shows a very good example of that, of what we've been able to get accomplished on both sides.
Mr. Cunningham has made a motion to amend. Is there a second to his amendment?
I will second the motion.
Mr. Rodman has made the second. Discussion about the amendment.
Can we restate exactly what the amendment is?
The amendment is that we will pass this to allow our county council committee meetings, boards and commissions to meet, any of our committees to meet virtually, even when the emergency is over, but not our council meetings. You must attend in person. Is that your understanding?
When the state of emergency drops.
Yes, when the state of emergency drops.
I think that's a good middle ground for us.
I believe it applies to all meetings, council, committee, and boards and commissions.
That's why I'm moving for the
He's amended it
amendment.
to say,
Okay.
this goes for everything but the council meeting. Which go ahead.
Well, I would speak to it. We only have 20 meetings a year. I know sometimes people have to travel, but in reality, there's value to being here. Doing it virtually, there's some impediments to it. Doesn't go as smoothly as we would like. And we knew ahead of time when we signed up that we would have these meetings. We scheduled the meetings basically in the evening for the most part. So I don't really see it as an imposition, and I think there's a high risk that it'll be abused, and it's not good for us. So I'm in favor of all of it, except for we ought to continue. And as Logan said, obviously at the state level and at the national level, those legislative bodies meet in person.
Mr. Hervishon?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote against the amendment, though I do think it is a good middle ground. What concerns me is instances like what we have with Bay Point, where we have a zoning meeting that is very well attended with a lot of public comment. There seems to be a public benefit to having public comment in those types of meetings. So I would be concerned that we would eliminate that when we have large issues that come before committees and boards and commissions. So I'm going to vote against it, though I do appreciate the effort to find the middle ground. I'm definitely against having council go back to virtual. I think there's just too much benefit to having the public here, facing the public, hearing public comment. I think the good public policy is developed in public, not behind a computer screen necessarily. So I'm going to vote against both, but I do appreciate the effort for the middle ground.
Okay, any other comments?
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Llewellyn?
Thank you very much. I find myself in a strange situation. I agree philosophically with the desire to meet in person, but because of my particular hearing impediments, I find that I can hear so much better or online than I can in person. But I got to tell you, I absolutely agree that we get more done, and I think we have a better relationship with each other when we meet in person. And so I'm willing to go on with the amendment and force ourselves to carry on in unity later on.
Any other comments? Mr. Lawson?
I am probably going to vote against the amendment, and only because I plan on being at every meeting in person. However, for the folks that, or the people that for some reason can't be here, I think it's important to have every voice count and be here for that meeting, whether they're virtual or whether they're in person. That if they can be here virtually, but they can't be here in person, I think that adds to our transparency and adds to what we're doing. So if we give them the option to meet, and I think I've mentioned before that that I plan on being here, and for some reason, if I'm not representing my constituents enough by being here and being in person, well, then that's whenever I would be replaced by someone that they chose to have replace me. So I'm going to vote against the amendment, but I would vote for the ordinance.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Mr. Cunningham, you made the motion for the amendment, so you will go first.
I vote yes.
And I'm sorry, I didn't write down who was the second.
I was, yes.
Oh, yes, Mr. Rodman, you will be?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Dawson.
I'm going to support the motion. I think when the
No, this is the amendment.
That's what I'm supporting the amendment. The amendment is to have all council members return to in-person meetings once the governor lifts the emergency mandate, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'm voting in favor of.
Mr. FLEWELLING.
As per usual, I'm with Gerald Dawson. Yes.
Mr. Glover.
No.
Mr. Hervishon.
No.
Ms. Howard.
No.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. McElynn.
No.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
Chair says no. The motion is defeated.
No, the amendment.
The amendment is defeated. We're back to the original motion. Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, we'll begin with Mr. McElynn, who made the motion.
Yes.
Mr. Glover, you were second.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Lawson.
Yes.
Mr. FLEWELLING.
No.
Mr. Hervishon.
No.
Ms. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. Rodman.
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
Yes.
Chair says yes.
Councilman Dawson says yes also.
I did have you down as yes.
I think I answered for Mr. Dawson.
He did.
Sounds the same.
The motion passes.
Oh my God.
Okay, we're at item number 15, first reading of an ordinance to call for a referendum allowing the qualified voters of Beaufort County, South Carolina to vote to retain the council administrator form of government or change to the council manager form of government. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
That's Mr. McElynn.
Yes.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Glover, discussion. No discussion?
Well-
Oh, Mr. Hervishon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote against this. I think that it consolidates too much power at the county level. And I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to a small problem, put it that way, that the voters can resolve themselves, frankly. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against this.
Mr. Radman.
Yeah, I'm going to vote in favor of it, just to explain those that may not be familiar with what we're talking about. The two forms of government are essentially the same, and the only change would be that those two positions, instead of being elected, would actually be working for the county, although the county would still have the option to allow them to be elected, or could elect one and appoint the other. I think in the old days, separating and having balance of power and checks and all those kind of things, it kind of made some sense. But in today's world with audits and so on, I think would actually encourage better people, because we as a council can hold to a higher level, as opposed to, there's really no requirements for anybody that's running. Now the public does get to decide that, but in any event, I do think this makes some sense.
Any other comments?
Yes, if I might.
Good.
Mr. Flewelling.
Thank you. Contrary to what's been stated, it would not allow county council to hire those people. It would allow the administrator
Yeah,
to hire.
that's correct. That's correct.
And so I think, again, it is a consolidation of power under the administration, and I think it's wrong just on that. It takes a choice away from the voters, and it's wrong on that point. And so the last thing is, it does not allow our municipalities to have the kind of authority as separately elected representatives of the people to exercise any of their voice over who is chairman or who is treasurer or auditor. And so I think it fails on that. I think it should fail on every single category of consideration. And so I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Lawson?
And as Stu mentioned, the two types of council administrator form is very, very similar. But for some reason, all the experts say that going to this one is the better of the two. And I know this has been on the council's agenda even back as far as 2011. I think back when Weston Newton was even here back in the mid-2000s. And as far as what I'm reading, this is we're actually voting to put it on the ballot to have the voters decide, which I think is better than us deciding, is actually having the voters decide. So I'm going to vote for it, to let the voters decide whether it's something that they want us to do or not. And we'll rely on Kaysen to do a good job of educating everybody of what's good and what's bad and what we need to do for this.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McElynn?
point of clarification. Mr. FLEWELLING, is it your opinion, and is it correct to say that only the 100,000 residents of unincorporated Beaufort County will have this on their ballots?
No, it'll be everybody.
That isn't what I said, sir, nor is it what I intended. What I meant to say was that in our current situation, the auditor and the treasurer are both responsive to the municipalities. And in case we approve this and the voters approve it, then the auditor and treasurer would only be responsive to county council.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, I'm still a little unclear on that line of authority to the municipalities. I don't get that.
Sure. If I could expand, Mr. Chairman, can I have the floor for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, my line of thinking is this, that as we speak right now, the county council, we represent roughly 17,500 people each, more or less, or at least as of the last census. Well, each of the municipalities also, all their elected officials represent and have a voice to each of the residents of their districts and their municipal governments. And so when I speak to my constituents that are in the city of Beaufort, they hear that with an equal force that the representatives for the city of Beaufort government speak to them. And I think that when so the residents of the county who are in the municipalities have a reason to listen to both me and the municipalities. I think if we were to pass this, the treasurer and the auditor are only responsible to the county government, their boss. They're not responsible to the voters anymore. And so the municipalities, should they not get the level of service or have the level of confidence in the treasurer and auditor, would have no input to the citizens in their municipality to complain that the treasurer and the auditor aren't responding to their phone calls or their concerns and aren't addressing their issues. So I think it's clear these people will work for the county, and that's it.
Mr. Rodman.
Yeah, but the counter to that is we also have a large number of agencies that work for the county and provide services. The assessor being one, for example. They assess the property across the county. They don't do it just in the unincorporated areas. This is one of many areas that we would provide a service to the municipalities.
Yeah, and just one final comment, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Lawson. This is putting it on the ballot for all of the 200,000 people who live here, or of the 200,000 who are qualified electors, to make a decision on what form of government they would like to have countywide. So I don't think that voting to keep it off the ballot as a referendum is the way to go. I would rather see the voters decide how they would like to vote on the form of government that they would like to have in the county. So I'm in favor of putting it on the referendum so that the voters can make a choice.
Any final comments? Okay. Mr. McElynn, you made the motion. You will vote first.
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
No.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Mr. FLEWELLING?
No.
Mr. Hervishon?
No.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. Rodman?
Yes.
Mr. Somerville?
Yes.
The chair says yes, the motion is successful. We're at item number 16, the first reading of an ordinance to levy and impose a 1% local option sales tax and use tax within Beaufort County, South Carolina, pursuant to section 4-10-10 et sec of the South Carolina Code of Laws 1976 as amended to define the specific purpose of the tax, to impose conditions and restrictions upon the use of the proceeds of the tax, to provide for a county-wide referendum for the imposition of the tax, to provide for the conduct of such referendum, to provide for the administration of the tax and other matters relating thereto. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to
Ms. Howard?
approve this.
Second.
And Mr. Somerville made the second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just say a few words.
Yes, ma'am.
Back when we met with all the elected municipality mayors, we made a promise to them that we would put this on the ballot, and that is why we need to do this. They wrote us another letter. We've heard from them before, and I think we need to give the public an opportunity to make that decision.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. McElynn.
I'm opposed to this lost in all forms, in all matters. I don't like it one bit, but I'm going to vote to put it on the ballot so that the voters can decide whether or not they want to implement this. I don't like the lost concept. There's nothing about I like about imposing another tax, but I don't think it should be up to me to make a decision for the people who live in the county as to whether or not they would like to have this. So I'm going to vote to place it on the ballot as a referendum.
Mr. Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have always been a supporter and advocate of the local option sales tax, primarily because it provides the municipalities in the county with a regular stream of revenue to do things that they otherwise would have to raise ad valorem taxes to do. And the beauty of it is, depending on the value of the penny, which continues to rise, the penny sales tax, it's now at 40 million or more. It provides $12 to $15 million a year annual revenue to be divided between the municipalities and the county to do the things that they need to do, that the citizens want them to do, and it's 100% paid for by tourists, that 12 to 15 million. The balance of it, 70%, 65%, or whatever it is, that our local citizens pay in terms of the penny sales tax, 100% of that is rebated back in the form of property tax abatement. You know, we've talked many times in this body about the problems with Act 388, which absolutely puts a huge tax burden on all businesses and all second homeowners. And I think most people would agree that the lifeblood of our economy is our businesses and our second homeowners. Without them, we're in real trouble, especially trying to fund the schools. And this gives them the larger abatement. Of course, they're the ones of the larger tax abatement. Of course, they're the ones that are paying the much larger property taxes. So it gives a little bit of relief on Act 388. Primarily, it gives the municipalities and the county an opportunity to do the things that the citizens want them to do and have the visitors pay for 100% of that money. As somebody mentioned, I think Alice mentioned, the mayors have sent us a letter all signed by all 6 mayors. We heard Mayor Murray earlier and Mayor Solka speak to this. Thank them very much for coming and showing up. But if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read the letter from all 6 mayors into the record, if I may.
We have that, and it will be part of the record.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. FLEWELLING is next, and then Mr. Glover, and then Mr. Dawson.
Thank you very much. You know, I'm always concerned when there is the potential for an increase in government power and the right to collect an additional taxes and increase in government power. I don't know that it's necessarily wrong for government to increase its power. It's just that the voters need to decide that question. And so for that reason, I'm generally inclined with letting this go to the voters. However, normally I'm very opposed to a non-general election year being used to decide this kind of a question. But because we already have one item just now approved to go on the general election voter referendum in November, I'm going to go ahead and vote for this as well. Out of character. Thank you.
Mr. Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the local options sales tax, but I'm also wondering if this is imposed on the citizens here in Beaufort County, can there be any exemption to the taxes?
No.
Is it straight across the board?
Straight across the board.
So there is no exemption at all?
No, sir.
Okay. I'd love to have some exemption if it was possible. But I think the municipalities have been asking for this. So I'm going to support putting it on the ballot and let the citizen decide whether they want to support it or not. Thank you.
Mr. Dawson, you were next, and then Mr. Hervishon.
Yeah, I didn't support this at the last meeting. I don't like the fact that once we put this local option sales tax in place, it's very hard to rescind it. And so therefore it will probably be a never-ending tax that all of the citizens in the Beaufort County will be responsible for. However, I'm going to take the liberty to go ahead and, even though I don't support it, I'm going to go ahead and vote in favor of it to put it on the on the ballot to have let the citizens decide if this is something they want to support. But I'm not in favor of it simply because once we put it in place, it's very hard to rescind it.
Mr. Hervachon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just sitting here thinking, if there would ever be a time when I would support a new tax, and I can't consider that would ever be a thing for me. As somebody who's in the tax profession and does that for a living, and watching how that affects people on a very personal level, and watching how we spend in government, I just can't imagine ever supporting another tax. In this particular case, I think sales taxes are generally preferable to other types of tax, being income tax or ad valorem tax, because other people are going to pay that tax, other people who are not from here. So we're gathering dollars from somewhere else. That's positive in theory. However, when we consider people who are on the lower end of the income spectrum who live in Beaufort County, they're going to spend every last dollar of their income, probably in Beaufort County, so every last dollar, almost, of their income is going to get taxed at an incrementally higher level. I think that that's progressive. Now, the other end of the argument to that is, well, we're going to have property tax rebates, and that's great, but folks who are renting are never going to see that. They're renting from somebody else who's a 6% property owner, and they're not going to pass that on. I mean, just as a matter of practicality, there's no way that we can expect that to happen. So for that reason, for those reasons, I think that it's highly regressive, and I'm against it. More broadly and principally speaking, I think that government by referendum is problematic and it's troublesome, and we should do it very cautiously and on a limited basis. It concerns me when we start punting all of these things to the citizenry, because we are elected as representatives. We represent our constituencies. We are here to make the hard decisions. And when we're sitting here and we're punting all of these decisions, I think that it's problematic, and I think that we're just abdicating our responsibility, frankly. So for all of those reasons, I'm against it. I apologize to the mayors. I totally appreciate your position. I understand your need for additional revenue. I appreciate that. I appreciate the effort, but I just can't support it.
Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of things that bother me with it. One of the big one is the timing. I mean, no, everyone sits up here and says, we're going to give it to the voters and let the voters decide. Came out of pandemic, a lot of people on unemployment. We'll still let the voters decide, and I respect that. But we all know nobody up here can sit here and say that we're going to have a massive turnout for this. We know that's not going to happen. It's an off election cycle. I believe the last time we did a referendum was for the school bond, which I even came out and supported. I think it was 17% of our voters came out and actually voted, which, you know, yeah, I'm thankful it got passed. But if we're going to levy something that has no expiration, I think that should be on a wide scale election that we have, whether that is presidential or at least to the House representative cycle. That's really difficult for me to get behind when I believe they said we have to have 15% of the signatures of registered voters to even bring it back to council to get it removed. I can tell you, and you guys know that, that's not going to happen because we do have to go door knocking. We talked about that in executive session. It does have to be in-person door knocking, which most of our neighborhoods will not allow anyways. I can tell you campaigning, you know, looking at some of the rules they have for no soliciting. If you're handing out free information, it's not considered soliciting. But the moment you are collecting signatures, emails, or trying to sell something, it is soliciting. So that's one of the big problems I have. It's something maybe I could get behind if we didn't have it on this election in November and you wanted to put on a wider election. The other thing that bothers me is, you know, it does have a greater impact on lower income families, which we all know more lower income families are either going to be renting property or in apartments, same concept. They're not getting those kickbacks. They're paying for it, but they're not getting those kickbacks. And I'm right there in Bluffton, District 7. And I have 4 or 5 apartment complexes right there in my area that'll never see a dime. And I hear the municipalities. I know there has to be some type of revenue stream. I want to meet with you guys. I want us council to meet with you guys and figure out how we can come up with a different option if this doesn't pass, because I want to get that done. I appreciate you guys coming out here. It means more to me than you guys even know showing up today. I talked to, in the executive session meeting we had, or the executive meeting last week, we talked about that. On the local level, you guys can do referendums for smaller projects. It can be done by your council. That was confirmed by our county administrator during that meeting. And maybe that's the route. I do want to come up with some type of middle ground. I do want to come up with a way to solve this problem, these issues, whether they're specific issues. Maybe it is a penny tax when our transportation tax drops off, and we can put another one on there with an expiration date. But my door is always open. My phone is always open. Please don't hesitate. I know it sounds like, according to Ms. Howard, that promises were made to you guys. Unfortunately, I was not there when that promise was made, but I do want to make sure that we can get that issue resolved for you guys. So I'd love to set something up with as many people as possible that want to join, so we can do that. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to vote no today.
Mr. Lawson?
I am going to vote yes. And the reason is, again, to let it go to the voters of the county. This is a tax, and again, I appreciate what both Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Hervashon had mentioned. However, you know, looking at the upsides of this, and I want to support Mayor Salka in the town of Bluffton, as well as Mayor Murray and Beaufort, but this does allow a lot of good things to happen. When we look at this, 71%, I think is the correct number, actually goes to tax rebates. So 71% of the money that comes in will go back to tax rebates, and then the money left over will be taken and used. I think it's the best way to be able to get revenue for things that are needed without putting in a local tax or a county tax. So again, appreciate everything's been said, but I'm going to go ahead, and the biggest thing is let the voters decide what they'd like to do this fall.
Sorry. Any other comments? Mr. Rodman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote against this. I'm sensitive to the fact that municipalities, have this concern. Of course, they're 40% of the population, and the unincorporated is 60. So we've got to balance what we think is best for the 60 as part of doing that. They clearly have the option to go to the public and do referendums for things that they want, particularly in the capital area. I am sensitive to the fact that there is property tax relief, but to me it's a little bit problematic, and it kind of goes like this. Let's say we put it in place, and clearly the money gets collected, and there's a deduct on the the tax for them, but at the same time, 388 is still in effect, and there's nothing to say that anybody's going to necessarily pass that offset along to the people. Now, it's always interesting to see what the other counties are doing, and a lot of counties do the local option sales tax, but they tend to be all the small counties, and if you look at the big counties, only 2 of our sister counties out of the 8 larger ones that actually do it. Has been pointed out, it is a forever tax. There's no realistic way that you'd ever take it off because of the getting 15% of the petitions. So it is permanent, and in that sense, it probably becomes the largest tax in the history of Beaufort County. Actually, Larry and I should probably be the biggest proponents of this, because the big winners in this are the 6% in the higher end homes. And it's been pointed out, the people at the other end of the economic spectrum actually do. It's a very, very regressive tax. Any sales tax is. But here's the piece that I'm struggling with. As we're in the cycle now where we're looking at what the capital and the roads are needed. You may have seen what Jared sent out recently, he called it the Beaufort billion, but it looks like order of magnitude, we probably need about $1 billion over the next 10 years to take care of the roads, and the growth that's coming, and the growth is accelerating. We see the land is being bought up. There's no inventory for the homes. The people are coming. There's a lot of things that are platted. So if we take that take that billion, and that's $100 million a year, there isn't probably much of any other way to do it other than the sales tax. And if we even do that for the 10 years, we're still only covering about half of what we need. And we do need the roads. If we went back 15 years ago, we had trouble even passing the sales taxes at that point in time for the roads. And we were failing miserably on those roads. So I think under any circumstance, we're going to have to seriously consider extending the penny sales tax. So in reality, in my mind, what we're talking about is we want to go to the public and say, do you want 2 pennies? Or do you want 1 penny? But I don't think it's really a realistic option to say we're going to let the transportation one expire and then we're going to do this particular one. Also a little concerned with doing it off year, and so I might think differently if we were considering both together, but to consider one this year and then the sales tax later on, I think we put the transportation at risk. For that reason, I'll vote against it.
Okay, any other comments? 3 points before we vote. Number 1, we, the council, have the responsibility to make this a referendum. That's why we're doing this evening. The council makes that a referendum issue. Number 2, once it is going to go to referendum, county council is out of it. We neither oppose or vote or encourage yes. That is going to be up to other individuals to sell this. And 3, and most importantly, it is going to be the decision of the voters of this county. And I'd like to thank Scott Marshall, who is on, who was also instrumental in putting things together. So we are now ready to vote. And with that in mind, we'll begin with Mr. McElynn. I'm sorry.
I think would be
Ms.
me.
Howard, you were the one.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Somerville, you were next.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Dawson had to leave because of an emergency. We'll go to Mr. FLEWELLING.
Yes.
Mr. Glover.
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon.
No.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McElynn.
Yes.
Mr. Rodman.
No.
And the chair says yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 3 no. Motion is successful. Item number 17, second reading of an ordinance to establish the initial residential solid waste fee as a uniform service charge for the solid waste and recycling enterprise system for Beaufort County to fund the planning, design, constructing, and maintaining solid waste and recycling management projects, programs, and facilities, and all other matters thereto. This is the second reading. We will have a public hearing at the third reading. Okay, so I seek a motion for the second reading.
Make that motion.
Mark Lawson makes the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Rodman makes the second. Discussion. Any discussion?
Well,
Mr. Hervishon? I know that there will be some other comments.
Yeah, I've got a question and then potentially more comments, but I thought that we had been promised the second reading that we would see an analysis between the difference of, or the tax impact of having it in the general fund versus the enterprise fund.
Yes.
And what that delta would be, if anything.
Right, I know that there was some work done on that. Mr. Rodman, do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah,
Or
actually,
Mr.
I have a short presentation that actually includes that in answering other questions. So I can either do it now or have other questions.
Absolutely, you know,
If we could do that now, that would be beneficial.
Okay.
yes, that would be beneficial because that may encourage additional questions.
Sarah, can you pull up that presentation?
Is it a short presentation?
Yeah, it's a short
We're running out of time.
I forwarded it out, I'm sorry.
It's short. I can do it in about 4 minutes.
Okay,
Oh, he's putting the expectation on it.
okay.
We're gonna hold you to that.
I know, right?
We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 agenda items to go through.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
What we had before us, on the left-hand side before, was $169 a year. And I think the initial pass at it was trying to project over 5 years what it would be. They actually had a large contingency in there. Mathematically had a slightly higher inflation than they had actually talked about. And it actually included paying for all of the capital projects. So that penciled out to $170 a year. If you now look at what they're proposing, it would be really $100 a year, and that equates to about $10 million for the next year. And that's essentially equal to taking what we have this year, adding 5%, and then adding a 5% contingency. We put in place the ordinance to establish the enterprise fund. And so it's an opportunity both to manage it as a business and secondly, to provide better transparency to the public. And I think when it comes to the capital investment, we would actually only do things that had a good payback for the citizens. So what we would see is, okay, there's some level of cost savings, there's some level of debt service, and we would only do the things that provide a net savings to the taxpayers. Second slide, please. Okay, this is to try to answer the question as best I could, but if we were to look at a home that was $250,000 in a rural part of the county, and about a third of the people use the convenience centers as opposed to the residential pickup, essentially what they would be paying now in property taxes would be about $50. And what would happen under this scenario is that they would be paying $100. So there would be a $50 increase. Now, if you look at at a home that was $750, more apt to be in an urbanized area, not necessarily. They typically use more of the residential pickup. They're currently paying about $550, which has the cost of the curbside pickup plus the property tax. And so if this fee goes in, they would actually have a reduced 50. So there's two ways to look at it. Clearly, it's a slight burden on the homes that are worth less because we're moving from a property tax to a fixed fee. On the other, and so there is a gain for people that are paying for the property tax now, so you could argue they're getting some tax release. The other way to look at it is that you got 2/3 of the people subsidizing the 1/3 that tend to be the more heavy users of the convenience centers. And you can argue that both ways, but I don't think it's a large amount of dollars either way. The third slide, please. So a couple things and one of the things that played into reducing the cost is we're probably looking at the better part of $300,000 as the reduction that we've seen with the decal system, and I think there'll be some more. Clearly, it's created an opportunity we're going to take up doing better enforcement on the recycling, because reality what's happening, some people are paying for recycling, and then the person who picks it up throws it in with the regular residential waste, and we're paying for that, and so they're paying twice. And I think that we'll find that there'll be some additional people that will want to opt in to the decal system. For example, we're working on making sure that if people want to, if they have a duplex or a triplex, they can enter in. Potential investments sitting out there. We talked about the large MRF where you collect everything in one place. We've talked about doing organic waste management. And what's popular in many parts of the country is waste to energy. So each of those would have a capital investment, but there'd be a cost reduction, and we only do them if the cost reduction is better than the investment that we would have. So over time, we would hope to see that the actual cost might go down as we make some of these smart investments. So anyway, that's kind of a snapshot of what this is all about, and the proposed cost is $100 a year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions now?
Chairman, I support the effort we're trying to move towards solid waste and being in better control of solid waste. The fee schedule right now, although I know it's coming out of property tax, is not equitable in coming out. And I would love to see a better fee schedule that would be more even to what it is right now. I saw what Mr. Rodman has shown us, and the equity is just not there when we start looking at the Avalon tax versus the fee. You find most of the people on the lower echelon will be paying a higher cost, and those in the upper echelon will be paying or getting an advantage on that fee system. So I would love to see some kind of better equitable scale that we could apply this fee service to, and get a better handle on where we are right now with solid waste. The public is right now not on board. There are a lot of questions about what is happening with solid waste, and to be truthful, they just don't trust us at this time. So I think we just need to make sure that whatever we do, we can basically explain to the public and not only explain to them, but if we say this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. Our integrity has to be there. So I just don't feel comfortable right now moving forward, but I do support moving this county into something to handle the problem with solid waste that we know is coming. Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Hervashon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Robin, that was helpful, so I appreciate that. I think where I am right now is where Mr. Glover is. And I see the need for the enterprise fund. I think that's the way to go. I think that's a good thing. I think what we haven't done a great job of is explaining how that works relative to the general fund, because in my mind anyway, the way that this works is it's just an accounting movement of dollars from the general fund to an enterprise fund, and nobody should theoretically see an increase in tax. That's not what we have with the fee schedule at this point. I'm not saying that it needs to be perfect, a one-to-one from the general fund to the enterprise fund, where nobody sees an increase. My sense is that we're probably never going to get there. However, I think we need to tighten that gap. $50 on the low end for somebody who's got a property value of $100,000 or $150,000 is a lot of money. A lot of money. We're going to hear about that. We're already hearing about that. So I support the direction that we're going in, but for me, the fee schedule is just it's not fully baked yet.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Howard?
I've spent some time talking to city residents and town of Port Royal residents about this, and they still don't understand the whole picture. And I think we need to do a better job of that, because they're already paying for residential pickup of everything at their doorstep, even though they want to use the convenience center when they want to. So I think they understand convenience centers, city and town residents want to use them. They don't completely understand the costs of disposal and how the county is absorbing that cost. So, until we can elaborate that, I think the enterprise fund is a good idea. How we direct that and the amount of the fees, we need to give some consideration to the people who are already paying on their water bill. It's the way we municipalities pay. Town of Port Royal and City of Beaufort. How do we explain what those other costs are? And also, I like Stu's points about organic waste. Nobody's doing a good job of that within the municipalities. It's all going into the landfill. Not a good thing. We can do a lot better with that and recycling.
Mr. FLEWELLING?
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I've struggled with this because, like Mr. Glover, I see absolutely the need for the program that we've designed and the improvements that it could lead to in our response to our voracious need to get rid of our trash. But I just don't think the fee schedule is correct. And, you know, I would suggest, and I just see a chat message from our CFO, that a millage rate, a dedicated millage, which would then go on each tax bill according to the assessed value of each person's property. I think if we figured out what that actual millage rate would be, and then we could raise it and lower it as the needs of the program, as our separate business enterprise has a need, we could either raise the millage rate or lower the millage rate in response to needs at the time. And so, you know, I'd like to make a motion, sir, that we change the model to reflect a millage rate that is equivalent to the present need of the solid waste enterprise.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, so we have an amendment to change the second reading at this time from a solid waste fee as a uniform service charge to a millage rate calculation. Correct? Is that my understanding?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay, discussion regarding the amendment.
I want to echo, I support that.
Okay, Mr. Hervashot?
I like that a lot.
Yes, it does seem to be a fairer way to address your concerns about the fact that individuals, it would be based upon the value of their property. So a lower end valued property with a millage rate would be paying less than a higher end property.
Correct. I like it for that reason. I'm just wondering if there's something that we haven't considered that would be a reason why we can't do that or we shouldn't do that.
I don't know, Mr. Greenway.
Well, a couple things. Number one, we can, prior to third reading, if you do this, do two things for you. One, we can calculate the millage that would be necessary in order to do this, so you will understand what that would mean for the value of house per household. But more importantly is we may have to have the consultants that did the original study, the rate method study for the enterprise to recalculate it, and that may take some additional time. So you may not see it for third reading on the 26th. It may be later, so that we can talk to the consultant about what this amendment might do to verifying the numbers that we'll have to prove in order to set up the enterprise.
Right, so we could pass the second reading with the amended,
Right.
and then we could hold the third reading when we get the information that we have structured in this,
That's
correct?
That's right.
I've got several questions, I think.
Yep.
If we just say that we're gonna go to a millage rate, which is equivalent to what we're already doing, that's in the general fund. That seems like that's something that our county CFO could prove out and do the math on, and that's a fairly straightforward thing. My question is whether or not we would have to have a set millage rate in the ordinance when we pass it, and then how is that gonna work between the auditor confirming that and what we've calculated or had somebody else calculate, and how's that whole dynamic gonna work?
Well, I don't know that I can answer those questions tonight.
That's okay, I'm just asking the question.
But we can, those are complicated things, but we can definitely have those answers provided to you all if you want to amend it tonight to provide for millage, because I think that's the best way to go, personally, as both a citizen of the county and as the interim county administrator right now. So we will provide those answers to you as quickly as we can after this meeting this evening.
Not completely on the spot, because I know I do it all the time, but off the top of your head, can you think of any reason why we wouldn't want to do that?
I can't think of any reason.
Jared, you had your hand up.
I can give a little insight into the millage. So the millage is an appropriate method. What millage does is it's based off tax value, so your house value, which is not necessarily correlate to the amount of trash that is populated by residents. So there's basically three ways to pay for this enterprise fund that we're describing. One is the fixed fee that has been on the table. 2 is the millage rate or ad valorem that we're discussing now. And then 3 is an idea that we haven't proposed yet, is a pay for use. So if you use 2 bags a week, then you pay for those 2 bags. If you use 10 bags a week of trash, you pay for the 10 bags a week. We don't have the data yet at this time. That is partially what the decal system is helping us identify. That is the end state that is the ideal, such that similar to a water bill, if you use 100 gallons in your home versus somebody who uses 50 gallons, you pay for what you use. So that would be the ideal state. We just don't have that data. But as far as millage, we can definitely work up. If we move the millage out of the general fund just for what is currently being proposed in our general fund budget, then that's a simple move and there's really no increased rate. However, if we move the millage out for what was originally proposed, $16 million, then that would be an increase of millage towards the enterprise fund. So that would be a number that we have to provide to council for consideration. Are we moving just the 10 million, basically what's the funded budget without the capital investment part, or are we moving the proposed 16 million that was proposed in the study?
I would think that that would be a further discussion that we would have to have, because if you set the millage rate too high, you defeat the purpose of what council is trying to do. So, questions that need to be answered, and I don't think we're going to have all the answers.
One comment, sir.
Yes.
I believe that question would be appropriately addressed during budget discussion.
Yeah.
Budget negotiations. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. We only have 8 minutes left. We passed a resolution. I mean, we passed something that said we were not going to go past 9 o'clock. We still have 7 items on our agenda to take place. So let's determine what we're going to do, because we may have to recess this meeting at 9 o'clock. Mr. Somerville.
You better add one to that, Mr. Chairman, because when we did the consent agenda, Mr. FLEWELLING, I think, excluded item number 8. We never voted on it as a separate item, so that still.
I know that's got to be done too. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
I may, I know I was the one that pushed us to 9. Would it be possible to move forward with the zoning, since these gentlemen are here today and waited patiently through our whole meeting?
That's the next agenda
Correct,
item.
yes, sir.
So we're in the midst of this one. We have an amendment on the floor to be acted on. Is there any further question about the amendment? Does everybody understand what we're going to vote on for the amendment? Do I have to repeat that? Seeing none. Okay. Mr. FLEWELLING, you made the amendment motion. You get to go first.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Howard, you were second.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Let's see, Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McElynn?
Yes.
Mr. Rodman?
Yes.
Mr. Somerville?
Yes.
Chair says yes, that is unanimous. We're back to the original motion as amended now. We begin with, unless there's any further discussion? Any further discussion about the motion as amended? Seeing none. Mr. Lawson, you made the motion originally.
I doubt there's any objection.
Yes, Mark Lawson.
Right, well, let's put it this way. Is there any objection to doing this unanimously? I see no objection, so this will be approved unanimously. Okay. All right, now we're at item number 19. Third reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning map amendment, rezoning request for 1.96 acres at the intersection of May River and Benton Lane from T3 Edge to T2 Rural. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lawson made the motion,
I'll second.
and Mr. Cunningham makes the second.
Without objection, sir.
No, I'd like a roll call vote.
Yep, okay. Is there any discussion on this?
I would like to make one really quickly. I would just like to point out that we did get letters from residents from the initial neighborhood, and those were forwarded out to all county council members from them.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Mr.
Well,
Rodman?
first of all, this is important. I think a motion to extend to 9:15.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
Without objection, sir?
Well, wait a second. We have a motion on the floor. We're amending the motion to extend the meeting. Is that an appropriate motion? Will our
I believe we can do that anytime.
parliamentarian weigh in on that?
I think we can do that
Ellen,
anytime.
can we do that at any time?
Under these circumstances, I think it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman. It's really a motion to limit or extend debate, which would be in order if it was only being applied to number 19. And given your circumstances, I think it's appropriate to handle it right now.
Okay, so we have a duly motioned and second to extend to 9:15. This will be done without objection. Are there any objections? Mr. Glover objects, therefore I have to call the roll. Unless we can just say it is, everybody else is voting. Okay?
Okay, yep.
All right, then we are extended to 9:15 as a vote of 9 yes, 1 no. Okay, back to the third reading of the ordinance. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like just real quick, again, go back and say that these folks bought this property in the mid-2000s as a commercial piece of property. They went and actually got a building permit, but never picked it up for commercial property. The zoning then changed, and again, it's not like these folks are buying it to develop it. They've held on to it for 15 years. If this was my property, I would hope and expect that my council person and the council would vote to go ahead and give them zoning, and they're not asking for the full zoning they had previously. So again, this is something that is a busy road, that is commercial property in my mind. Even though I think our zoning staff was against it, they came back and said, no, this was actually not spot zoning, which was the only reason I heard everyone vote against it previously, was because they said it was spot zoning. And again, our own staff said it's not spot zoning. So I voted for it all every time it's come up, and I will continue to vote for it. And again, I think that we should give these folks what they deserve.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing no other.
Very, very quickly, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
My biggest concern is the fact that it's not on public water and sewer, and I fully expect the owners to do the right thing and to connect to Beaufort Jasper when it becomes available.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing no other comments. Mr. Lawson, you made the motion, you get to vote first.
Lawson, yes.
Mr. Cunningham, you voted second.
Yes.
Mr. FLEWELLING.
Yes.
Mr. Glover.
No.
Mr. Hervishon.
Yes.
Ms. Howard.
No.
Mr. McElynn.
Yes.
Mr. Rodman.
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
1, 2, 3, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes. I will be the seventh yes. That motion carries 7-3. Okay, we're at boards and commissions. With the permission of council, I would like to take them all at once.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Items 20, 21 through 25. Okay, may I have a motion for all of those?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cunningham makes the motion.
I'll second, sir.
Mr. FLEWELLING makes the second. Is there any discussion? Without objection, we will make recommendations to the governor's office. We will appoint individuals to the various boards and commissions. Seeing no objections, those individuals will in fact be approved. That then takes us to the end of this meeting. And I thank you all for.
No, we have item number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Item number 8. Thank you. I would have thought that was done, but it was not. All right, we need to take a look at item number 8 from the consent agenda is a resolution setting forth a uniform policy for processing, responding to, and tracking requests for public records in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, South Carolina Code of Laws 30-4-10. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McElynn,
Second.
Mr. Somerville. Discussion.
I guess I'll go first.
Mr. FLEWELLING.
Thank you. I intend to oppose this. I think that it places an unfair burden on us elected officials and any of the elected officials in the county. The county has the staff to handle this kind of thing, and we don't individually have the staff. This places an unfair burden on us. I think that the burden of the actual tracking and calculation and the other matters for freedom of information should be a matter of the county, for the county to address, not for us as individual elected officials. We don't have the staff.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I will call the question then, because Mr. McElynn, you made the motion, you will vote first.
Yep.
Mr. Somerville,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
No.
Mr. FLEWELLING,
No.
Mr. Glover,
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon,
No.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. Rodman,
Yes.
and the chair says yes. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 3 no. The motion passes. We are now at the end of the meeting.
I have a question, sir, relating to a previous vote.
Yes, sir.
The emergency ordinance regarding masks, when does the current ordinance expire?
The emergency ordinance either goes for 61 days or if the governor so chooses to end that.
16th.
No, sir. What is the current day that it's due to expire? 61 days from the previous reading?
It's the 16th or the 19th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one it is, but it is this week.
I believe it's the 15th.
I thought it was the 15th.
15th?
I believe it's the 15th.
Yeah, it's the 15th, so it's 61 days from the 15th, or if the governor ends the mask ordinance. And there was a comment made that the legislators are proposing a bill to take that power away from the governor, and I'm not sure that has been enacted as yet.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's the 19th.
Kurt, you want to weigh in? I thought it was the 15th.
I'm relying on what the clerk was counting, and she said the 19th, but I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay, whatever. It's 61 days from there.
Okay, so our ordinance expires on the 19th.
If
Unless
that's
the governor sooner releases the mandate, his emergency ordinance.
correct.
Thank you.
Wait, for clarity, our motion for the mask mandate did not pass.
That's correct.
Correct.
So
The mask mandate did not pass. That ends on the 15th.
That was the 19th. That's the question Mr. FLEWELLIng is asking about. That motion
61st day.
failed, so it will.
Expires the 19th. I
Correct.
think.
I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I thought the last time we calculated it was 61 days from the last time we passed it, which was the 15th. That's why we took it up today.
Right,
But
which
so
is
be it.
fine.
It's ending this week.
15.
Sarah
It's the
says it's the 15th.
That's what I said. It was the
You're right.
15th.
Sorry.
Okay.
Somebody emailed me and said the 19th day.
I think I said the
No, it's the
19th.
15th.
I think I said.
Okay, there being no further action necessary, This meeting stands adjourned. We left early.
Hey, thanks, Ellen. I know you didn't have to